model upon your Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Ashabath, Ba'shalawam, Thawada, Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Ayanyam Ya Oh Haharyam Ma'ayan Yabawa'a Isaiah Yabawa'a Mayahawa Shaisha Shamayim Wa'aratiza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Shashamarka Hana La'a Yanawam Wala'a Yayashun Shashumar Yasharella Yahweh Shamaria Yahweh Tazalia Ayel Yam Ya Yawamum Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wayarat La'a Balayala Yahweh Yashamaya Makol Ra Yashamar Napasha Yahweh Yashamar Hawalakia Wabawaya Ma'aitha Wa'aid Iwalam Basham Yahweh So water Aman.
Psalm 121. I would lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. You will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, Hail Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our Father is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abba Yinawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwethka, Saba'ah, Ratazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'aratiza, Ka, Bashamayim, Lithalanawa, Lakam, Yowum, Za, Wasalakunawa, Kababwathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababathyanawa, Wala'a, Habiyanawa, O Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Marai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wa'athapara, Wa'aiwalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aishara Matazawat, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akaryim, Alpanya. La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Paso, Wala'ah, Tha'ibadam. La'ah, Thalakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashawa. Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, Lakodashra. Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka. La'ah, Tharatzak. La'a, Thana'ah. La'a, Thaganah. La'a, Thaina, Shakur. Thakla'a, Thakamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy father, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy father, am a jealous father, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy father in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that to keep his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle. On 6 days the Lord made the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy father giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman. Inshallah, be seated. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Part Yahagapan, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha'Allah. I model upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Select the English translations for the blessing of the fruits of the vine. It says, Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Now the opening prayers. Barakatah Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Abiyah, Wanara'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Shol, Shamayim, Wa'aratazah, Wakom, Debayim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapalah, Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Anka, Yasha'Allah, Izarnawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'Allah, O, Nanawa, Yum Yum, Aitha, Kayawamyam, Makwadam, Baba Kusha, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazawadak, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnaw, Baikor, Shalat, Harokan, Shon, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabian, Kakama, Tabawana, Wada'ith, Shon, Debarka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, Thum Yad, Wa'iwalam, Aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahushua, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Nathalanawa, O war, Lara Awa. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Korun, Ha'iyom, La Korah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hashemun, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha Allah. Yeshabah, be seated. All right. Shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings to the brothers and sisters throughout the nation of Israel, watching us on the live stream, listening on the teleconference, those who are here in the school. Again, shalom, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. We're going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahushua, or the Lord in heaven, the Heavenly Father, and our only begotten Son, who came down to be an example for us, to show us how to walk in these last days, Yahushua, that the world ignorantly calls Jesus. And the same thing for the Most High, who the world ignorantly calls Jehovah, but his real name is Yahweh, right? We give all praise, honor, and glory for allowing us to be in this truth, to be in this light, to be able to come and have knowledge, to come on the Sabbath day, to worship before him, set aside all of our personal endeavors, that we may come and soak up his Holy Spirit, so that we can go out and teach others, that we can go and be a beacon or a light to others as Yahushua was to us. So we want to thank the Most High for allowing us to have this knowledge and to be able to see clearly, distinctly, in our right mind with the Holy Spirit, to understand his will and understand his word. This is Hayashra Kanaz, which in Hebrew is the congregation of Israel. So it's the first time clicking on this site, the first time logging in and tuning in. We are about those whose ancestors are on their father's side, going back at least 3 to 4 generations. You represent the Most High's 12 lost chosen, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, who was lost their identity, lost their inheritance, meaning their land, and lost the Most High's covering that he had on us at one point because we broke the commandments of the Lord. Those whose ancestors came over through the diaspora, transatlantic slave trade, sub-Saharan slave trade, came over to serve slavery, going back 3 or 4 generations, known as the so-called Negroes, so-called Black Americans, right? So-called Haitians, so-called West Indians. You represent a portion of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And then those who are indigenous here before anyone else came over, the first to inhabit this land of Canada, North, Central, and South America, right? Known as the so-called North American Indians, known as also the Taino Indians, known as the so-called Hispanics or Latinos, Arawak Indians. You represent a portion of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Collectively, we are one nation, 2 sticks joined together, because we've been separated through portions of our history when we left and divided ourselves up during the time of Solomon because of his sin, and then moving forward. But we are two sticks, two groups that come together to represent 12 tribes of the Most High's chosen people in the planet Earth today. In these last days, the Lord has sent out his spirit to us to teach us his will, to open us up through the reincarnation that the world calls, or the regeneration of our spirit. In these last days, we are now had the opportunity to come and hear this word and understand the precepts. Right? A lot of times people read the Bible but don't understand the precepts. The Lord has sent out his true teachers, his true prophets, the true believers that in the last days will come before him and follow his will as to the best of our ability until the time Christ comes back, or even to the time we may have to give up our spirit and then we'll be brought back during the time of judgment to receive our reward. So this is what we're trying to make sure that we all have that understanding about the dietary laws, the ceremonial laws, moral and civil laws, to allow us to guide our thoughts and our decision makings and making rightful, stern choices in these last days, so that we cannot fall into any of the pitfalls that may happen, that we see happening to a majority of our people. All right. So in tune with that, we come on a Sabbath day and we go through a couple chapters, usually always 2 chapters on the Sabbath day, Old Testament, New Testament, and then also in the hidden books known as the Apocrypha. We try to touch and cover all bases to show that we deal with the Bible in its entirety as it was originally constructed during the time of 1611, authorized by King James, not written by King James, but authorized to allow these men to go and translate the Bible into different languages to fulfill the prophecies that was written in Isaiah, the 28th chapter, right? That it would be in another language or another tongue that the Lord would speak to this people. So this is where we're speaking English now. We did the prayers in Hebrew, but knowing that that's our original language, but most people don't understand Hebrew. We could have done the whole class in Hebrew according to the Lord's Spirit, but those who are watching may not understand what Hebrew is. So Paul taught us about that in Corinthians. If you speak in another language, another tongue, and people can't understand it, what benefit is it? Even though it's in the holy tongue. But if those who are needing to understand this can't decipher what the meaning is, it's of no value, it's of no profit. So we have to come and teach it in the language of our oppressors, because most of our people who are still in the dark only speak those languages. All right. So with that being said, my name is Kahana Priest Samant. I'm going to be presiding over today's Sabbath service. We're going to be in the book of 1 Samuel, Old Testament, 1 Samuel, chapters 27 and 28. All right. 1 Samuel, chapters 27 and 28. We're going to dive right in. So if we remember in the previous chapters, when we was reading consistently and how King Saul was after David to try to kill him, because he saw the spirit that was on David, and Saul had an evil spirit upon him. So when you read the last chapter that we read in this book, the 26th chapter, the way it ended off, it appeared that it ended off peaceful. I'm going to read that. 1 Samuel chapter 26 and 25, right? It goes into seeing that Saul was amenable to saying, okay, David, you got no problems with me. I got no problem with you. Everything is peaceful. And then we're going to jump in and see where David's mind was, even after that, following that, to see what now decisions he would make. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 26. And I'm going to start at verse 24. So 1 Samuel chapter 26 and verse 24, it says, and behold, as thy life was much set by this day in mine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Right? Then Saul said to David, blessed be thou, my son David, thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place, right? Because there was times when David could have had the upper hand to go and actually take revenge on Saul for all the attempts that he made on his life. The Most High had it where David was always in a position, with the help of his men that was with him, where he could have gotten Saul and took him out, removed him out of the way, and it would have never been a threat. But David regarded Saul as the Most High's anointed because he was anointed king. he was an Israelite. He was a brother. So he didn't want to go and do that to King Saul. Even though he had many attempts on his life, David now had compassion and grace and favor shown to Saul, even though it wasn't reciprocated. But now here, as this ends off, again, Saul is amenable and he's like, okay, David, no problem. And everything went away peacefully. But because that evil spirit was on Saul, shortly after it would rise up again, and then Saul would then make a means to go and try to get and apprehend David. Right at this time, David wasn't king yet. Right, he wasn't over presiding, even though he was already accepted as being the king. Samuel had already anointed him and said that he was going to be king, but it hadn't been presented to the nation of Israel yet. Right. So now, as we go into Samuel 27, we understood what just happened between him and Saul. We'll see where David's mind is. Right. So this is chapter 27 and verse 1 of 1 Samuel. It says, and David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. And Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. So David said, after he sat back and contemplated all that had now just transpired, he said, you know what? If I stay here, I'm pretty sure Saul at some point in time is going to get the upper hand and he's going to take me out. He's going to kill me if I stay here. So you know what? I think it's more expedient that I leave Israel and I go into the land of the Philistines. I go down there where they dwelling at, within that area, right? We're going to see what he's speaking about, if he's left the whole land of Israel or if he just left the areas where Israel was dwelling at. So I'm going to read it again. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Sometimes you be dwelling in an area and your dwelling place just may not be conducive for you or your family. There's just all kind of obstacles and turmoils and traps all around you. And you say, you know what? It's best that I get up out of here. I need to move. I need to go somewhere else that's going to be beneficial for me and my family. So David said the same thing. He's like, look, if I stay here, I'm gonna die. You stay amongst the bunch of crime that there's the shootouts and everything else, and you got family, or you say, you know what, it's best I get up out of here. Sometimes it may not be that easy for others. That's where you got to pray. That's where you got to make wise decisions and be circumspect in everything you're doing. But in cases where you can, you say, you know what, it's best that I get up out of here. So that's what David said. I'm going to go into the land where the Philistines dwell and dwell there. I'm going to go amongst the heathen, right? It says, and Saul shall despair of me, meaning he'll forget about me. He ain't going to be worrying about me no more, right? To seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hands. So now there won't be no problem no more. Now, some people may look and say, man, so David was a sucker. He's a punk. He could have took him out. Why are you running, right? You never run. You stand your ground. But again, keeping in mind that this is a brother, right? Saul was a brother. He knew that if he stayed around, something was going to come ahead, and he didn't want to deal with that. He didn't want to have that guilt put on himself, nor did he want to have Saul kill him. So the best situation, the wisest situation at that time was, let me just remove myself from the situation and everything will be good, right? That wasn't a punk move. That was a wise move for both parties, that he wouldn't be a murderer and he wouldn't get murdered, right? So sometimes what appears to a lot of people, because of, bravado or whatever the case may not be the best decision. You should not want to always cater to what popular opinion is. You want to always cater to what wise judgment is. And sometimes the Lord gives you a lot of different precepts in order to make some determination, right? Go to the book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha. Ecclesiasticus chapter 7. Ecclesiasticus chapter 7 and verse 1. It says, do no evil, so shall no harm come unto thee. right? And that's what David was executing all this while we're reading in the book of Samuel. He didn't want to do no evil to this man, even though this man wanted to do evil and harm to him. So he says, if you don't do no evil, so no harm is going to be reciprocated on you. That's what it tells you in Galatians 6 and 7, right? What you sow, you're going to reap. The Most High is not mocked, right? The Most High don't play with that. So that energy that you put out all the time, the Lord is going to have it circle back. So if you just put out good energy, you put out righteousness, then that's what you're going to reap. The rewards are going to come back sometimes sevenfold, meaning the Lord is going to be infinite in his mercies towards you. So we read again, do no evil, so show no harm come unto thee. Depart from the unjust, and iniquity shall turn away from thee. So if you remove yourself from those who are unjust or evil or carnal and what have you, you don't always be amongst them in their, in their gatherings. You don't run with them, right? You may say, you know what? I see what's going on over there. I don't even want to deal with that. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to separate myself from them so that I don't get caught up in a jam or I don't fall, to in some pitfall. So it's sometimes a wise decision to just remove yourself from the element so that you don't now put yourself in harm's way indirectly. Salat, somebody, brother, the door. Doesn't matter. He could have just opened it. All right. So now this is just a one precept. Let me get one more. Psalms 30, I think it's 37. Psalms chapter 37. And 27. Psalms 37 and 27. It says, depart from evil and do good and dwell forevermore, right? So if you depart or you remove yourself from evil, you don't do evil and you separate yourself away from evil and just do good works, the Lord will have you protected and sustained where you can dwell evermore. Your surroundings is going to be blessed. The Lord will encamp angels around you so that no harm comes to you. Remember in the book of Job, when the Satan wanted to go and tempt Job, the Lord, kind of petitioned him to go and deal with Job. But Satan said that he had a hedge about him, meaning he was well protected. He had guardian angels, not the ones that used to run around in New York City in the trains back in the 80s, but the actual real angels protecting that no of these other evil angels would come and do anything of harm to him without the Lord's will, without the Lord's judgment. So that's what the Lord will do. He will allow you to dwell safely forevermore, right? Even to the time of the kingdom, where nothing is going to come and take you away, right? The Lord, even Yahushua, knew that those who was given to Yahushua would not be taken away because the Lord gave them to him. Even the regeneration of the spirit, those disciples that was there, they was going to be here in the present and then as well in the kingdom. So this is something that when we pay attention to it and use it in our daily walk, we get ourselves out of jams and we separate ourselves from, harm's way that comes to a lot of people. Sometimes we run to the nonsense, right? Oh, they shooting, they got going on. We run to the commotion, right? And it ain't something that you're trying to go help somebody. It's just that you want to just go and just be a part of the nonsense. That's how it was in the world. You always want to be involved in something. But sometimes you don't need to be, because you already know that that's a negative environment or a bad situation, right? Unless you come in to do good, unless you come in to separate men from fighting or getting themselves, physically hurt or what have you, you might as well just leave that alone, right? So you got to make wise decisions and how you maneuver in these days and times. So back to 1 Samuel chapter 27 again. All right, back to 1 Samuel 27 and 1, and then we'll read on. It says, and David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. And Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose and passed over with 600 men that were with him into Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath, right? So now he's going to go and dwell and the cities of the Philistines. And Gath, when you look it up, was one of those major cities back then that the Philistines had. The Philistines is almost like what you see in New York, how you have the 5 boroughs. They had something like that back then during this time. And when you look at the history, Gath was one of those areas that was very prominent. And that's where David went to go dwell amongst this Hamitic king, right? King show him favor. But now we're going to understand and see why this is so. So let's read it again. And David arose and he passed over with 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maach, king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household. So that's a key thing, because a lot of times when you read the scriptures and it's talking about certain men, you would think that it's just David and these men, right? But now also they got families rolling with them as well. They got wives and children. They just didn't leave them behind as they, roaming from place to place. Sometimes the family came with them, but they're not numbered with them. It's 600 men with their household. So 600 could be 2,000. It could be 1,500. It could be 1,200. We don't know, right? The Most High wouldn't give us that because it's not important. The men is what was important that the Lord wanted to give an account of, how many was rolling with him, right? It says, and David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife, right? So we just read before when Nabal the fool, right, died because of his wickedness. The Most High had him taken out. And then he went back and took Nabal's wife, which was Abigail, which was a woman of wisdom. So now David had his household with him. He had 2 of his wives. So of these 600, you may have one who didn't have any wives, some that had 1, some that had 2, some that had 3, right? But whatever they had, they all rode with him to this city Gath, right, that was being run by the Philistines. It says, and it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him, right? Because now he's amongst the nations. He's not amongst the Israelites, where in Saul's mind, he would now have gained influence and favor. So because he's over there, I don't care about him no more. He done fled. He exiled, so to speak. And this is what David's whole intentions was. He said, if I flee among the nations, he don't care about me, right? I don't have anybody saying, oh, David 10,000, David 10,000. I don't have to worry about that. So the spirit now was somewhat quenched, right? I mean, he didn't have that desire to go seek him anymore. And David said unto Achish, if I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee, right? So again, that goes back to understanding what was going on in this area called Gath that was run by the Philistines. Like we said, they have 5 major cities, and Gath was one of them. And even David called it the royal city, meaning that's where the king dwelt. And there was a lot of, place with merchandise and great things that was dwelling in that land. So David, like, look, why, if you find grace, if I'm cool with you like that, let us go live out in the country. Why we need to be up in here, right? David now is being tactful because he wanted to isolate himself from these Hamites. He wanted to be off on his own. He didn't want to be all up under them in the mix of them, right? Eating their food or do what have you, like letting certain things rub off on them, seeing how they worship and all that. Sometimes you just want to isolate yourself and do your own thing. That way you're not influenced, right? Let's go to the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah. The 9th chapter and the 2nd verse. Nehemiah 9:2, it says, and the seed of Israel separated themselves from all strangers and stood and confessed their sins and the iniquities of their fathers. So when we wanted to now rebuild and be a strong nation, when we wanted to now come closer to the Lord, we had to separate from the nations. Because even though the Most High created all nations were not one or equal to or had the same laws as the children of Israel. And the iniquities that we faced was because we followed after the other nations and disobeyed the Lord. So at times it's best where we are segregated, right? Even Martin Luther King said after he now had fought for our, inclusion into society, that we can go and not have to drink water from a fountain separate from them, he realized that by now integrating, we would begin to lose our own identity. Because now when we go to their schools, now we have to learn their history. Now we have to learn their thoughts and their ways. Now we have to follow their holidays and things of that nature. We would not be on our own anymore because, of course, we are up under them. So now this is the same thing where you understand the scriptures, that when we are now integrated with everybody and we're following their gods and we're following their practices and we're doing this and we're doing that, we're giving our sons to their daughters and their daughters to our sons, now we become one big melting pot, right? And that influence sometimes will begin to alter and change your mind. So sometimes you want to be secular, you want to be in your own area, right? A lot of times when you look in the cities, you'll also see a Chinatown. They have a whole area that's just separated just for them. They have their restaurants, they have their businesses, clothing stores, all of that just for them, and other nations as well, right? We don't usually have that. And when we tried to do that, they destroyed it because they wanted us to be integrated. They wanted us to be influenced with a lot of the other philosophies and doctrines and practices and religions and things of that nature, because over time, it will cause us to do what? Sin. So the prophets in the past, the ancient of our elders and ancestors, would separate ourselves when we knew it was just too much. So David, when we go back here to 1 Samuel 27, he's like, look, man, he's using wisdom. Let me go out here in the countryside where ain't too many people at. All y'all living in the city. Let us go out there and dwell and just be on our own if we cool like that, right? It says, verse 6, then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah, unto this day. So now these Hamites, the king Achish said, okay, cool, I'll give you the city over here called Ziklag. I mean, this countryside over here called Ziklag. You can have that, right? Now, if you understood the history, this was already Judah's land anyway, right? But there was something that prevented it from being owned and occupied by them. Go to the book of Joshua, the 15th chapter. We read this probably a year ago or early in the year when we was in the book of Joshua about how the lots was distributed. It was distributed amongst the different tribes. So now go to the book of Joshua chapter 15. And we're going to start at 21. Joshua 15 and 21. Anybody got it already? All right, Gabar, if you could read that.
Okay, this is the book of Joshua, chapter 15 and 21.
Actually, start at 20.
And 20. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah, according to their families. And the uttermost cities of the tribe of the children of Judah toward the coast of Edom, southward, were Kabzeel, and Eder, and Jagur.
Right. So now it says, this is the inheritance, the land, the lot, the land place that the Most High said was segregated just for the tribe of Judah. So then it's going to talk about the land as well as the cities that they would then now inherit. So now we're starting to get into specific names and things of what they would then inherit. Jump down to verse 30.
Verse 30. And El Tulai, and Chisul, and Hormah,
Mm-hmm.
and Ziklag, and Madmana, and Sansana.
Right. So it says in the beginning of 31, and Ziklag. Now, Ziklag is the same land that now Achish is given to David and his men, that they can go over there on the countryside and dwell there. But now, how is Achish giving this area to David when the Lord during the time of Joshua said already that it was the land that was for the inheritance of the tribe of Judah? David is a Judite, so why he don't have this land? Why he can't just walk in there and be like, yo, I'm about to go over here and just dwell in the area that was for my forefathers, right? Jump down to the last verse. Verse 63.
Verse 63. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out. But the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day.
Right. So even though the Most High had given the different lands of inheritance that would be occupied for all the tribes, it didn't mean that everybody now had access to go and doing certain things, because the Lord told us that the Hamites were still dwelling in the land. We didn't kill everybody or remove them out with all the wars that we fought during the times of Joshua. So now that's why they're still in the land, dwelling there, in the land of Israel. So now when David's saying that he's leaving out of where Israel is dwelling, he's not leaving out of all Israel. He's just leaving where Israel was occupying the land that was inherited to them. So he now migrates over to this area where the Philistines or the Hamites, the Jebusites, and all of them are dwelling. And then he's like, yo, if I find favor, let me go over there. But that's their land anyway, according to what the Most High said. But they didn't occupy, they didn't have control over it. The Hamites did at this time. All right. Now let's go back. So sometimes when we was reading all these names later on in the future, when you start reading these names and you start seeing certain countries and cities, they have importance to understanding history on how things came to be over time. It's just like, because it's a whole bunch of names there. Molitor and Samson. You be like, man, I don't even know how to pronounce some of these names. But then when you see it later on, it's just a name that was there. It's a point of reference to show you who really owns the land, who was dwelling in the land, all the things that come associated for geography. So anybody who's into geography, they want to dive deep into that, right? Everybody may not be in the geography. Everybody may not be in the archaeology and understanding the importances of cities and locations and land masses. Somebody may have a spirit that has that on them, right? So now let's go back to 1 Samuel 27 and now verse 7. It says, and the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months, right? So 16 months he dwelt in Ziklag, which was his own inheritance, but it was the country of the Philistines because they still owned it, right? So he was there for a pretty good time. Now let's see what David was doing while he was there for this period of time. Verse 8. And David and his men, the 600 men, went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites. For those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. So now here it is, the land or inheritance of Israel, the tribe of Judah. You got Hamites dwelling there, and then you got even other pockets of families of people that's dwelling in that land. Right? So now you got a real whole mixed multitude of people that's dwelling in there. Before Israel came in there, it was a whole bunch of people there, right? So now you got the Geshurites, the Gezrites, and the Amalekites. We know who the Amalekites are, right? They're the descendants of Esau. So they had a family that's dwelling in the midst of Ham. It's the same thing like when you go down to Africa or South Africa. South Africa was now predominantly populated with a lot of Edomites. But it's the land of Ham. How the heck they get all the way down to like the bottom of Africa and they dwell in there? Because people migrate and they go and, you know, start up their own little villages, and villages becomes towns, or village becomes countries and cities, and they start building up and they now spread their influence, right? It's all driven by the Spirit of the Most High to fulfill his will. So now David is now going and warring with these doggone people in the land of the Philistines, that's really their own land. Verse 9. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. Right? So now he's there. He's going out on a war campaign, killing and taking all the victuals and bringing it back to the countryside. Because again, he got, his men and their households. They're trying to be self-sustaining. So the best thing to do is just go out here and take from these heathen, right? Now watch what happens. Verse 10, and Achish said, whither have ye made a road today? And David said, against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and the south of the Kenites, right? So he pretty much is saying, where you been going, right? It's another form of expression of saying, where have you been? What paths have you taken? Where did you end up? Because I see y'all leaving, but where did y'all go, right? And David is pretty much saying, I went to my own people and was taken from them, right? I went to go war with my own tribe. I went to go war with those who are friends with us, right? Let's go to 1 Samuel 15 because it mentions the Kenites. 1 Samuel chapter 15.
What would the Philistines consider today?
Like Palestine, like the Palestinians. That's that area right there. Philistine, Palestine, that's where they get it from. But they will be the Hamitic, not the like Ishmael, but the Hamitic individuals that come out of that's in that region. Most of them have been pushed out, right? And most of them have been pushed out from actual Philistine or Palestine and have been pushed further into the land of Ham. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 5. First Samuel chapter 15 and verse 5. It says, and Saul came to a city of Amalek and laid wait in the valley. So now here it is. Again, we read this story before several months back when Saul was now going on his campaign. He came to a city where the Amalekites were dwelling. It says, and Saul said to the Kenites, go depart, get you down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. Now the Kenites were not Israelites, but they were a friend to Israel. They showed favor unto us. So we treated them with favor, almost similar like what Rahab did when the spies came. When she looked us out and allowed them to go and hide and then get them down by the wall so they can escape, we show favor to her and her family because they show kindness. Same thing with the Kenites. So now the Kenites is who's being mentioned here because these Philistines, they know that they're cool with us, right? We haven't gone to war with them. But when David is asked, David said, yeah, I went to the Kenites, south of Judah, so forth and so on. But David is ultimately lying. He didn't go to them. He went to the actual heathen and was robbing and pillaging from them. Now, let's go back to 1 Samuel chapter 27 and verse 11, and then we're going to revisit this. 1 Samuel chapter 27 and now verse 11. So it reads, it says, and David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so David did, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. So that was his purpose. He's like, yo, we're going to go out here and get some cattle. We're going to get some resources. We're going to get this and we're going to get that. We're going to take that from them. They're just not going to hand it over. They're going to fight. And when we fight, we're going to kill all the men and we're going to kill all the women. Why? Why did David say he was going to do that? Why did David have to kill all the men and the women?
Because they didn't want to agree.
Huh?
They didn't want to be our, what you call it? Our servants, right? They didn't want to be our servants.
Mm-mm.
They didn't want them to rise up again.
Huh?
They didn't want them to rise up again.
Not so much as rise up again, but something else. He just said it.
Who just said it?
David. I'm going to read it again, right? Verse 11, and David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. Right, exactly. Because he's doing this. He strategically went and said, I don't want to dwell in the midst of the Philistines. I want to go in the countryside. I want to be able to go and come without nobody seeing what the heck I'm doing. So now if I go over here and I start robbing and killing off these other or stealing from other nations, they're going to come back and tell the king of God, saying, look what David doing. He's going to do it to you too. You the one letting them come up in here. Look what he's doing to us. So he went and said, I'm going to do this, but I ain't going to have nobody that's going to snitch. I'm going to kill everybody. All the men, all the women, they're going to die. So the only one who's going to be able to tell what's going on, guess who it is? Me. So nobody know. You did it with the witch too?
No, the witch. When I was saying that.
Oh, it might have been something similar.
Something similar. That David went in and tell the guy, what were you doing over there? He was just like, I just went over there and
right.
But he was killing the people and their stuff.
Right.
I think he did the job because it says in my notes next week, 28 and 29. Well,
oh,
it's good to have a short review of it.
Oh, okay. Well, if we got time, we can just run through it all. All right. Yeah, come. If it is correct, I'm gonna check it out, and then we'll just do it all, just stay on point. So now it says, and David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. So now David himself wasn't forthcoming. He wasn't truthful. Right? He wasn't truthful. So now there's always a question about lying. Right? When is lying good or bad? Is there something truthful to what Esau talks about, a little white lie? Right? But now we also got to understand one thing when it pertains to being truthful and honest. Go to Colossians. Go to Colossians.
I pointed out, even though our people do good, sometimes we got to point out when they do something that is not our quality.
Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3 and 9. Where it says, lie not one to another, seeing that ye have put off the old man with his deeds, because it was commonplace for us to just say lies here and there, right? Just to get out of a jam or just to get a convenient upper hand on somebody, right? Now, here in certain cases, when you read the scriptures, you know that the Most High controls everything. The Most High even said it during the time of King Ahab that he was going to put a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. That was a judgment that the Lord was going to do. It wasn't something that they willingly wanted to do. We see it from on high that the Lord did that. The Lord put lying words in the mouth of all of his prophets because he was a wicked and rebellious king, right? But then there's certain cases where you may scratch your head where it's like, well, maybe they had to do this for sake of the nation. For instance, go to the book of Exodus. Go to the book of Exodus. I believe it's chapter 1 or chapter 2. Exodus chapter 1 and 15. Exodus 1 and 15. So it says, And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. Pardon me. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live, right? So any male child dies, any female child lives. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. So they feared the Most High, meaning they kept the commandment. They didn't want to go and commit murder because these children didn't do anything, right? So now it says, and the king of Egypt called for the midwives and say unto them, why have you done this thing and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. So they're like, yo, these sisters is not like the heathen. We don't even get to go and deliver the baby. They just pop out, right? They just pop out. All the women, when they now delivering their baby, and it's there. By the time we come in to help, he's like, oh, they already hearing the bleeding of the baby. But that's not what it was. They didn't want to go and commit murder, right? They didn't want to go out there and kill innocent children. So now when Pharaoh and them came and asked the question, they could have just said, listen, we ain't going to murder no children. We ain't going to murder these babies. We're going to not do any of that. If you feel that's a fault with us, kill us, right? You had some men that did that, right? Like when you read it in the Apocrypha where Eleazar, when they wanted him to eat the food that was clean, but it appeared to be unclean. Eleazar said, no, I ain't doing that because they going to think that I'm now doing something that's wicked. So he sacrificed himself for the nation. Sometimes you'll have situations like this where the women didn't get the murder, but they also deceived the Pharaoh, assumed what was going on. But now let's see what happens. Therefore, God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses, meaning he lifted them up. Because midwives normally are in, lower quarters. They're in kind of like, outhouses, or they don't have the best of things. But the Most High had it where they would prosper and then get good houses because of the decision that they made, right? So now, even in the midst of some of the things, sometimes wisdom comes in on how you deal with the other nations. Like when David went to the other king and he had to act like he was a derelict, like he was foaming at the mouth and doing all this stuff. Look at this. Is this the king? Why he acting like he got spirits on him? He was deceiving them, right? For his own good, for his own protection, so that they wouldn't go and get an upper hand and try to kill him, saying who he was. So just like in Matthew chapter 10 to 16, Yahushua said what? Be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove, right? Because I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. You got a lot of people that's around you that's going to be looking to take advantage of you. Some are going to get delivered up, some that's going to happen. So you got to be careful in what you're dealing with. Choose your words wisely. Make sure that you can get out. But to Israelites, sometimes you got to just say, you know what? I'm going to be forthcoming with Israelites. But with the heathen, that's something different, right? You don't always got to be as forthcoming as you are with Israel, because we're the children of truth. Now, does that give us license to just go out there and just lying about every damn thing? No. It's about using wisdom, right? You got to use wisdom according to the spirit, right? There's a difference of just going out there on a carnal mind state and just using words to just gain or get yourself out of jams because of the wickedness that you're doing or the sin that this other person. That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about like Abraham and his wife. He used his words carefully. It's my sister. Did he lie? He didn't lie, but he was careful in how he chose the words because he felt that man was going to kill him to get to his wife. He did it twice. Same thing. I think Isaac did the same thing. Another patriarch did the same thing. So sometimes you have to be very righteous in how you're dealing with other people. And I'm using that word clearly. Righteous in how you're using your words and how you deal with other people. If it's going to save a life, if it's going to benefit the nation, not just talking about benefiting just, your personal endeavors, but if it's going to benefit something that may be a life or death situation or cause harm. Rahab the harlot, she lied to save the Israelites, and we showed her favor. So it has to be very understanding on how it is, because some people will look at this and say, oh, he was wicked because he was going out there and killing off the heathen, but he wasn't doing that to Israel. He wasn't doing that to Jake. And he didn't give a damn about a Kish because he's a damn heathen his damn self. Pequod then Gabar.
Another way of looking at it too, the scripture says in Ecclesiastes 7:20, there's no man that doeth good and sin not. So the thing with David is not so much the sinning part, is his act after he sinned. So he didn't try to cover his sin. He go to the Most High and ask the Most High, listen, man, I do wrong. Sometimes when you're in the flesh and you try to save yourself and you do things, you don't even know why you do it, because your faith is not up there yet where you really, trust in the Most High that he's going to deliver. In the spur of the moment, you try to save yourself. And then you say something, but you know that, you fell, and he didn't try to cover his sin and try to pretend like he didn't do it. He goes straight to the Most High and say, listen, I did this. And that's why the Most High said he's a man after his own heart. It's not like he sinned and he tried to cover it up. He sinned and he come clean before the Most High. So, I did this.
Right. And even in that, even some of the examples that you see throughout the scriptures where certain individuals use certain words either to deceive, to get themselves out of a situation, or because of fear of death or what have you. What you don't want to do is lie on the truth, right? You don't want to try to get yourself out of a situation or circumstance, and then to do that, you got to lie on the Most High, or lie on Yahushua, or lie on the laws, or lie on anything that's righteous. You don't want to. That's an ultimate. You can't. That's just totally wrong, right? But what Pequod is mentioning is a lot of times you got certain men who do some things in the scriptures that you don't always see, where the Lord will come in and judge them for, like Judah when he went out there and lay with the harlot, right? Well, it was actually his daughter-in-law, but he didn't know that. But he went out there, was looking for a prostitute. Now, you don't see in the scriptures where the Most High went and condemned him, or you read the judgment of the Most High saying, because Judah went and did fornication, this happened to him. It's not there. So does that mean that the Lord gave that a pass? Does that mean that the Most High is not looking down on certain things because it's not written, you don't see it? No, right? It's not, that doesn't mean that, because we know the Most High has his law for a reason, and he's going to deal with individuals according to his mercy, right? What David did with putting that man out on the front line to get murdered and then going dealing with his wife, the Most High showed more mercy than it probably would be for another man because of David's heart. And because he was honest and going and, like the brother is saying, being truthful to pray and repent, went into the altar. The next man may not be as forthcoming, may not be as honest as sincere, and the Lord will deal with him how he deal with it and make it be harsh. And we'll look at that on the surface and be like, but that guy did the same thing. Why is he dealing with him as harshly and not him? Well, we don't know all the facts. We don't know all that person's spirit and how the Lord has been dealing with him throughout generations and what he did in the previous life to cover up some sins that's here right now, right? What alms he's been doing, right? How much prayer he's been doing. You can't see that. The Most High and the angels and Yahushua see that. So it's hard to judge a person's judgment or punishment based on what we see on the surface, not knowing all the history and the backstory from previous life or even something that's going on in this life. Gabar then Manashah.
All right, you said that Abraham, you said that wasn't a lie. He told to save his life for his wife.
That wasn't a lie because Sarah is his sister.
But it wasn't the whole truth.
It wasn't a lie.
It wasn't the whole truth.
I understand that. That's like me. If someone come in here right now and say, "Is this your brother?" I say, "Yeah, that's my brother." Am I lying that he's my brother? Now, if he gets specific and says, "Well, is he your brother from your same father?" He didn't ask that question. He just says, "That's my brother."
Well, how did you understand him to say that's the way you understood it?
Yes, he was very choice with his words.
But if he said, "Is this your brother from your father and your mother?"
Right.
Then you would be lying if you said that, yeah, he is.
Yeah, if I said, "Is this my brother from my father that I have over me?" And that's number one in line.
No,
did he come from his seed?
No. We're talking about your father that put the sperm in your mother to have it.
That's what I just said. My father that's above me. That's in the first in my generation.
Oh, God.
No, no. Just like how we say go back 3 and 4 generations,
Right.
going back 1 generation, that's my father. That's the one that now we're talking about, right? He's the one that's over. He put the seed in my mother to give me. I'm his offspring.
All right. So if you understood him to say, if this is this your brother
Right.
from your father that put the seed in your mother?
Right. And I say yes.
Then you.
That's a lie.
That's a lie.
Right, because he's not of that lineage.
So you're saying that Abraham didn't understand?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, what
He just
saying?
What the scripture said. He said, "This is my sister." That's all he said. Read it again.
You say, "This is my sister."
Right. My wife.
He would either be saying, "This woman is from my nation,"
No.
or "This woman is from the same father."
Exactly.
Now, which one was he talking about?
Hold on. Exactly. Right. That's the point of what Abraham was doing, because he knew, he used wisdom. He knew by him going into this other area that this man was going to look at his wife and think that, listen, I want her. We got to kill him.
Right.
Right. So that they wouldn't put the focus on me. I'm just going to say that that's my sister. Now, that's not a lie, because that is his sister. Yahushua said, he who follows the will of my mother, of the Father, that's my mother, that's my brother, that's my sister. Right? Now, all of these people ain't come out of Joseph's loins, but they are all, according to Yahushua, that's his family. That's his mother, that's his brother, that's his sister. So when I say that's my brother, he's following the will of the Most High. That's my brother. Now, the king Abimelech didn't get specific and say, hold on, brother, or not brother, hold on, sir. Did this man come from out of the loins of, it wasn't specific. He just put that out there just so that everybody will receive it as is, without context. When you read the story, he didn't ask that question. It just was presented in that manner.
It was understood Abraham knew what he was talking.
I know Abraham understood it. That's what I would do. If I'm going into Moab's area, me and my wife, and I know that they may look at my wife as a pillar, but they have a standard where if that woman is with that man, he got to go.
Right.
I'm going to say, look, this is my sister. We just looking for a place to stay. Can you see if you can get us, a room? Oh, that's just
a lie, though.
That's not a lie.
Oh, but you can't.
So hold on. Go ahead, Con.
You gotta be real, brother.
Hold
that's
on.
A lie.
Right, but let's just say, right before, let's just say we in the school, and a woman of the nation of Israel comes in here, right? How would you address her? Sister, right? Now she's not your wife. She's not out of your loins of your father, but you still address her as your sister, right? So now, time goes on, 6 months, a year goes on, and then after a while, you start courting her, right? You start understanding about each other, so forth and so on. Still, you use the word, it's my sister, we betrothed, we dating, so forth and so on. But now, let's just say, a year and a half later, you get married, you lay with her, right? She's your what? Your wife, right?
All right.
Is she still not your sister?
Yeah, that's all good. Well,
follow where I'm going. Is she still not your sister?
We agree that she was our sister.
Okay, hold on. So now say what I'm saying.
She will always be your sister as long as she's from the nation.
Okay, so now my point in saying that is like saying, okay, she's my wife, she's my sister. She could be a whole bunch of other titles. Like Yahushua has a whole lot of titles associated with him. He's not just one thing. He's the savior, he's the redeemer, he's a conqueror, he's a lot of different things. So if someone comes and says, well, who is Yahushua? Oh, he's the redeemer, right? And if I just leave it that he's the redeemer, I'm using wisdom because I'm knowing what context that they're thinking. And because of the conversation that's going on, I'm using wisdom to use that title for the situation. I'm using wisdom. These is heathens. I'm using wisdom to get myself out of the jam. I'm not even lying to what I'm saying to them. They don't have wisdom. They don't have the understanding, right? I do. So if I just say that's my sister, that's not a lie. That's not a lie. Huh?
That's not a lie, but that's not.
All right, that's all we wanted. That's not a lie. All right. So we will take that. We will take it. We will go through the scriptures out once we finish the service to break down how this is according to the scriptures. But going back to David, David did this so that he would not cause any harm to come upon himself
course.
when he was now living and dwelling amongst the Philistines,
Right.
so they wouldn't come and try to kick him out or war against him in that land. Huh? Oh, okay. But that's the why. We'll talk about it in more detail after the service. So now let's go back. Oh, Spock, I forgot you had a question. No comment.
Yeah, I'm not. And I was just going to point out that, Peter had to lie to save himself when he denied Christ.
But see, that's different.
You know what I mean? So I'm saying as far as to save himself in terms of in the situation that he was in. So he's like, yo, listen, I don't know him. I wasn't with him.
Right. But that's why I said earlier, you don't want to lie on the truth. You don't want to lie on Yahushua. You don't want to lie on the Most High. Right? That's different. That's why even after it, Yahushua told him he was going to do it. And after it, he felt guilty and started and was crying and everything else. He just didn't do it and felt good about it. No, that was wrong. Right? Peter did, Peter has some, like Paquai said, he has some sin and wrongs in him as well. Even though he had those things, Yahushua still sort of good in him, that the characteristics and the things, the qualities that he had, he was fit to be head of the church. Now, as every head, even the high priest, when we read in the law in Leviticus 16, we know the Most High tells us that the high priest got to go and do an atonement for himself, right? He's the high priest, but he still got sin in him. So when he's doing the atonement for the rest of the nation, he can't relieve himself because he's not perfect. So he got to say, well, I got to go do an atonement for myself too, because I done some things that's wrong. So then these men is not removed without any wrongdoing, right?
Yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to point the fact that, sometimes you got to do what you got to do in a certain situation. And that situation there, man, he didn't want to get killed.
Right, but I hear
he didn't want to get killed in that situation. And even though Christ told him he was going to deny him, but he didn't know he was going to do it. And until you get into that moment. So he had to do what he just react.
Right.
Because he saw what was happening to Christ. He's like,
I don't want that.
And he got scared. He's like, yeah, they're
I
going to
agree.
kill this guy. I don't want to die.
I agree.
So in that situation there, you do what you have to do. At the time, like it's the same way, like somebody's going through some stuff. Man, if it was me, man, I would never done that.
I understand that.
Until you get in that situation, you won't know what you're going to do until you get in
that. I always say, I agree with that. But we're not talking about what you would do. We're just talking about the act itself, right? Because Yahushua said, if you deny me to anybody, I'm going to deny you to the Father. So now he told Peter that he was going to deny him, right? So Yahushua, because he said that, he could have took that and said, well, you're going to deny me 3 times, Peter, and I'm going to deny you to the Most High after that because I warned you. Nah, again, everything comes with context. We don't know all of the backstory to that individual Peter. Peter is going to be shown more mercy than, say, a Judas, right? What Judas did in his act had more weight on it than what Peter did. But even though Yahushua told Peter and the rest of the disciples, if you deny me to others, I'm going to deny you to the Father. So now, but Yahushua already told Peter that he was going to be the rock of the church. So now that circumstance, sure, it happened, but it doesn't say that, oh, that's right. Peter lied to save himself, but in lying all the time to save your life, is that the right answer?
Not always.
Not always. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on the situation. When you're looking at it to say, well, if I would have just said, yeah, I'm with him. That's my savior. And they said, oh, you with him? You're going to get sacrificed on that cross as well.
String them up.
Right? String them up. Right? And now you on the side with Yahushua, thinking that Yahushua about to come off the cross and save both of us. But no, now you're going to get crucified with Yahushua. Now watch this. Peter still got crucified. He still got crucified. Yahushua told him that he was going to get crucified, but much later, right? Later on, he was going to get crucified, but he still got crucified. So now if it had not have been the situation where he lied or said or denied Yahushua, and he said, yeah, we've been rolling out there teaching, and what? They would have grabbed him up, and Peter would have never made it to an old age to go and do those things. He would have been in the spirit world with Yahushua, right?
But in that case, that would show that he had a faith that was built up to that point. Even if he died and then make it to the old age, still he would see the kingdom, just like Stephen.
Exactly.
Got stoned, and he saw the glory of God while he was getting stoned.
Exactly.
But that's not how the Most High wrote the story. So you have to do what you have to do and deny Christ.
So then what you're saying is the Most High, the Oracle, right, knew that was going to happen. Like Yahushua told him that was going to happen. But that's like Yahushua saying, listen, you're going to be at a banquet and they're going to have shrimp scampi and you're going to eat it. Right now, does it? No, yeah, I know I ain't gonna eat that, but they're gonna be like, okay, well, it's not shrimp scampi. We just use the shells off the shrimp and just boil it in some water just to get the flavor, right? And that's what's in the sauce. It's not the actual shrimp, right? Now, 4 months later, you're like, man, I never do that. Then you get in a situation, then it's like, everybody eating it, everybody looking at you. It's your auntie, your favorite auntie. You know, she always loved cooking for you. And now you're sitting there and you eat it, right? Now, the spirit could have came on Nabiya and said, yo, brother, for some reason I had a dream. You're going to eat some unclean stuff. What? You bugging out. Talking about you going off. Huh? And then all of a sudden it happened. Now it happens. And you eat the doggone sauce. What happens? You feel guilty after you do it, like Peter felt guilty. Because you knew it was wrong, right? Even though he did that to save his life, he knew it was wrong. The guilt set in on him. Now, every sin ain't going to be requiring a death for every individual. That's the key, right? When David did what he did, the Most High could have killed David right then and there. He didn't. He didn't kill David for putting that man on the front line, intended for him to die. He didn't, and then to go and take his wife. He didn't kill him, right? He jacked his family up. He put him through a lot of tribulation, but that judgment is not always going to be the same that's going to befall somebody else for doing the same sin, right? The Lord, you know how everybody always say, only God can judge me. Only God can judge me. What they're really saying is when it comes to the execution of death today, that's the Most High Yahushua. They got that decision of seeing if a person is going to get mercy or if he's done so much goodness, his alms now cover up that sin. Whereas that other guy, he did the same thing, but he wicked. He ain't got no alms. He ain't doing no good works. So he got to go, right? Or he claimed he trying, but behind closed doors, he really not trying. He really not thinking about this. He just appeared before us. And then you see what happens. You're like, yo, it's kind of messed up. You start questioning God and you start, no, we're not on the Lord's level to understand the depths of the spirit and how everybody's actions and things work.
I just realized I should have said something, set the text out. It's 28 and 29.
Right. He just told me. Yeah, he just told me.
27 short.
Right. So I'll just gonna catch up, stay up and read up on it. All right, so we back in 27.
Oh, and what you brothers are talking about is important as far as you always mention kind of intent. You know, there's what we do and there's why we do it. And the Most High sees that why that motivates us to where the same act by two different brothers or two different sisters could be weighed differently in the balance. So that's that soul versus this soul. And that's the part we just don't know. We have to trust. Okay, God has his reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But it's messed up because the Christian church will say that same thing too, coming from a place of, gross ignorance. It's like, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways. They'll say it about the Most High, make fun of them. We can say it from a place of understanding. As far as us understanding how he judges souls.
Right.
Not just based on the commandments they keep, but by the fruits of the Spirit too.
And that's why, and it was at Isaiah 8 and 20. It says to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, is because no light in it. The testimonies that's in the Bible gives us that background, that insight. That's why it's behooving to read the whole Bible and not say, oh, the Old Testament don't matter just because they got the law and I don't deal with that. But the testimonies that's in there, how the Lord now gives us the background on certain aspects. He'll give us the background about Job. He'll give us the background about what Isaiah or King Uzziah went through. He'll give us the background behind certain things so we can understand to a certain point, not the fullness, but to a certain point, the Most High's intent, right? So we'll see where it's like, Yahushua speaking about how some people are in gross darkness. Well, how did it get to be that way? Well, the Most High is the one who set that whole thing up. The Most High said, I need somebody to go and do this for me. And then you understand it's to fulfill the prophecies. The prophecies had to get filled. And these are going to be the catalyst to make it happen that way based on the actions of our ancient ancestors. So it's a perfect judgment, harmony, just that's moving forward, that if you don't understand the history or you don't get the testimony, going to be hard for you to, understand the Lord or or accept his will. That's the key, right?
I got 2 verses too, just to back up what you said also.
Okay.
Tobit chapter 4 and verse 10.
About the alms.
Yeah, and also Tobit 12 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
So Tobit 4 and 10, it says, because the alms do deliver from death, they suffer not to come into darkness. And Tobit 12 and 9 says, for alms doeth deliver from death, it shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life.
Good. And then the same, I think, one more just to go with that. Book of James, chapter 5 and 20, where it says, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death and shall hide a multitude of sins, right? So by you going out and just converting somebody to come into the truth, right? Teaching and somebody getting in and now they see this planet, the Most High says you had about 8 sins that you just did this past week. Forget all of them. That was a blessing right there. You brought another 1/3 into the truth, right? Without doing any good works or alms or deeds, then you would have been, your scale would have been tipped the other way, and the judgment would have probably happened to you faster, right? But the Lord has it where he's giving us ways to escape the judgment of death because of sin, right? Do more alms, convert sinners from their ways, pray, repent, all of these things works in your favor.
One quick comment. And also what we don't want to do is cover up sin for our brothers and sisters, even though we know we should help them, see the sin and then repent. Instead of covering it up, say, nah, man, you are Israelite, you brother, you good, you're all right, you'll be all right. It's like you got to point it out and then help the brother or sister to realize that and help them not suffer sin to build upon that brother or sister so that they get destroyed, because knowing the terror of the Most High will persuade men.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you hate your brother if you keep letting them piling up sin and not even tell them.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry. To go with James 5 and 20. 1 Peter 4 and 8. And also Proverbs 11 and 30. So 1 Peter 4 and 8. It reads, and above all things have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Showing you James 5:20 is the ultimate form of charity.
Mm-hmm.
The best gift that you can give someone. It keeps on giving, as they say. And then also Proverbs 11 and 30. Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 30. Where it reads, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. And then one more. This is in Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12. In verse 3. So Daniel 12 and 3 reads, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever.
All right. So let's continue on Back in 1 Samuel 27 and now verse 12. It says, and Achish believed David, saying, he have made his people Israel. He have made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore, he shall be my servant forever. Right. So the thought was because he was going out and saying that he was warring against Judah and the Kenites and those who were near to him, he believed that and says he can dwell here. He didn't tell him that it was the actual other heathens that he was killing, right? Because they would have probably came and warred against them and kicked them out. Verse 28, chapter 28, verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel, and Achish said unto David, know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. Right. So now the Philistines made an occasion to go war with Israel. And now David is dwelling with the Philistines in the land of Israel, but in that countryside of the cities where the Philistines control and occupy. So now they said, well, since you already been fighting against your own brothers, you're going to come out with me to go fight against them. Right. No, surely I'm going to have you in pocket with me. Right. It says in verse 2, and David said to Achish, surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. So you already know my reputation. I already told you what I've been doing, right? Just to gain his favor. And he trusted him that he was going to make him a high up position within his army, within his realm, right? Just like how Joseph got elevated in Egypt to Pharaoh. He was like second in command. So David was going to have that same fortune. Verse 3. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him or mourned him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land, right? So now when Saul, was in his right mind, he caused to execute the law, right? Exodus chapter 22. Exodus chapter 22 and verse 18. Right? Saul put away those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land, right? So now here in Exodus 22 and 18, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, right? Because now a lot of times people, when they see these TV shows, or they see movies, Harry Potter and everything else, they just think that it's just TV. It's just something that's made up. But no, this is actually real, right? You have people who deal and entertain on the left-hand side that actually are given powers, spiritual powers on the left-hand side, or influenced by powers on the left-hand side to do these things, right? To cast spells and do a lot of different things to now cause harm to other people. So now the Lord didn't want Israel to be entangled with that, right? Because it's a spirit that comes on you once you start dealing with it. That's why sometimes you got to be careful, either the young ones, adults, they got to be careful that they're not seduced into that, because sometimes you may observe it either from a middle, something small as 3-card Molly or 3-card Monty, and they moving the ball around and they doing this and they doing that, and then you may lose your money, but then you enamor like, yo, I wonder how they did that. Yo, it got to be some magic. Or you got some street performers who are magicians and they doing all things and they're making rabbits come from behind your head and everything else. And you like, well, dag, if I could make a rabbit come from behind my head or coins come out of my ears, man, you know how much money I can get or how much prominence I can gain? But it's all left-handed side spirituality, right? In order to do these things, you got to go and deal and entertain Satan. Familiar spirits is as if you are now a median to going and dealing with dead spirits or evil spirits to now be the one to either speak to other people or conjure up spirits to do certain things. And the Lord said, don't deal with that. Right? Because that's something that now you are not going to be able to worship the Most High in the right frame of mind, right? Go to the book of Acts, the 16th chapter. We're going to come back to Deuteronomy, chapter 18. Acts, chapter 16. Huh? I did. 22:18. Oh, I didn't get to Deuteronomy yet, but I'm gonna come back to that. Acts chapter 16. Verse 16. So now it says, Acts chapter 16 and 16, it says, and it came to pass as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying, right? So you look at the way that it's worded, it says that this woman, right, she was doing divination and was getting a lot of money, bringing much gain in to those who were her masters by going out and soothsaying, trying to predict the future, right? So now here it is, when you look at it, it says that the damsel was possessed with a spirit, right? She just didn't have certain powers. At some point, the spirit had to have now jumped on her to now start dealing with these different things. That's why the Lord even wants us to kill anybody who deals with this, anybody who tries to influence you to go and deal and seduce you to doing this, because it's now going to alter your spirit that's on you, right? Your Holy Spirit is not going to be tainted with this evil spirit. And we know how the Most High works with wisdom, that if you now have any evil, any malignant evil that's in you, the Lord is not going to dwell with you. That wisdom is going to flee from you. So you got to have, you know, that mind state that you want the Holy Spirit to have dominion over you, and you be enticed and seduced by that, or to covet those qualities, than to say that you're going to go and deal with familiar spirits or enchantments or wizardry and all these different types, necromancy and all this different type stuff, to being a soothsayer, right? The Lord says if that happens, you are possessed with a spirit, right? The spirit that we want to be possessed with is the Holy Spirit, right? Now, let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. I just read 16. Deuteronomy chapter 18. And verse 10. Somebody read that, Baba Kushar. I'm trying to find another precept.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, and what, verse 10?
Verse 10.
There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch.
Keep reading.
Or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer.
Keep reading.
For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doeth drive them out from before thee.
Keep reading one more.
Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God.
Right. So the Lord said he wants us to be perfect with him. What does that mean? That he wants us to be perfect in keeping the law, right? Because the law tells us to avoid all of these things. If you go and you start dealing with any of these different types of qualities and titles that deal with sorcery and wizardry, the Lord says then he's not going to deal with you. But now it is shown that this thing, if the Lord had to put that in the law, it had to be something that's real and of substance, right? For us to avoid it. It's not something that's just made up. So sometimes when you see on YouTube, or you see even in real life, when you go somewhere and people are doing certain things, it's real. The Lord says don't deal with that, because then you can become possessed with a spirit, right? Read the next verse, 14, and that's it.
For these nations which thou shalt possess, hearken unto observer of times and unto diviners.
Right. So the other nations, they don't have the Most High, right? The Most High is not their God. They deal with false gods and man-made gods and all man-made practices. So they go and start worshiping and following all these different types of things in order to gain knowledge and gain wisdom and so forth and so on the left-hand side. So this is what they do. Read.
But as for thee, the Lord thy God has not suffered thee so to do.
But as for Israel, the Lord said, don't deal with that. Leave that alone. We have the Most High, right? So when you look at a lot of these things, you'll see that there's almost like a comparison to some of the things that we do, right? The Lord deals in dualities, right? And sometimes Satan to take something that's righteous and flip it so that it now appears to be something that looks like righteous because it has some of the same qualities and comparisons, right? So when you look at it, it says to maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. Now, what is that dealing with? Sacrifices. So now with Israel, we knew that we had to sacrifice offerings to the Lord. A lamb, a bullock, a goat, a dove, whatever the case may be, for certain things. Well, on this plane, they also sacrifice people. They call them human sacrifices, right? They didn't deal with animals and goats as much as wanting to now please their so-called gods, please the spirit by now going and sacrificing people, humans. That's why sometimes now when you look at the industry, they always talk about, yeah, that one that died right there, it was a sacrifice. It was a human sacrifice to please the gods, right? So now when you look in the scriptures and you see, oh, we had to sacrifice these animals, and then you look over here, you got to sacrifice actual human beings. Some may be like, well, you know, I mean, okay, yeah, you know, it's a sacrifice. It's all wrong, right? You're killing anyway. You're killing something. So what's the difference? So now people start to now come up with that mentality and that ideology. Then it says, or use divination or observer of times or enchanter or witch. So now when you read through the scriptures, the Most High has us to now go and check out the new moon, count so many different days from then, and this is what's going to happen. It's going to be this feast day, and this is what you're supposed to do on that day, right? On the 7th month, the 10th day, guess what? You're going to do this on this day. Certain practices and rituals you have to do on certain solemn assemblies. But on the left-hand side, they do the same thing, right? They go out there and observe astrology and the stars, and they try to see when this is aligning, and that is now going to be their source of inspiration to guide them and tell them what things they need to do, right? So there's the parallel of all of this stuff that's on the left-hand side that the nations do compared to what the Most High Yahweh gives us on the right-hand side through righteousness. Now, the Lord ain't having us go out there and do these evil, wicked things that others do on the left-hand side. He's not having us go out there and get dolls and put pins in them and put curses on an individual because they don't go the way that you want. The Lord don't have us do that. On the left-hand side, they do these things and even more, right? Be quiet.
And when you look at it, the children of Israel, they the Most High's agency on earth to establish His will, right? When we read in Psalm 40 and 8, right? It says, I delight to do thy will, O Lord, thy law is within my heart. The Most High is there, wants to establish His law in our heart so we can do His will to establish His kingdom, the Yahushua's kingdom. And that's why it says if we want to do anything, 2 Timothy 2 and 5, Yahushua is the only mediator between the Most High and Him. So therefore, by us going to other medium to find out how things are supposed to be going on earth, is like establish another kingdom parallel to what the Most High wants to establish. It's like you deny Him altogether as the creator of the earth, then you try to use something else that's less than, and that's that's
breaking the first commandment. That shall have no other God or power or source than the Most High God. Right. So when we go and we say, because these practices, a lot of times they deceive the people and they'll make it appear that this is dealing with God. Right. Sometimes they'll make it appear falsely that it's dealing with God. And then other times it'll just come out blatantly and say, this ain't dealing with no God. There's no God. So you got to go and you tap into these sources. This is the true power. This is the source that which allowed the Egyptians to rule and these types of things. You got to worship and get the image of Horus. Right. If you have the image of Horus, because when you read in the scriptures, it also tells you about the images, how the images also now conjure up certain spirits and allow people to do certain things, right? It's not always just Caesar Borgia, it's other images and things as well that they do in order to now cause people to fall under certain spells, right? Then it talks about enchantment and charmers and all these different types of things. Esau and the nations, sometimes they're not as direct as what these individual people do. They'll use other different types of devices in order to get those messages conveyed, right? So like when somebody's doing chants, like we may say, okay, you know, we may do send up the prayers, we may do the Deuteronomy 6th chapter 3 times, and we do certain things to kind of bring that force. Well, they'll do the same thing as well on the left-hand side. They'll do repetitive chants, right? It's like sometimes, like on a carnal level, you may hear a song that come on the radio. First time you hear the song, the spirit tells you, this song is, I hate this song. This song make no, yo. You may hear it the second time, like, yeah, they playing this again. But that song gonna get played a lot. 4 or 5 months later on, you love that song now. That song has now been beat. The chant, the repetitiveness has been beat into your brain. So now that spirit that goes with that song, that in the beginning, your spirit was so against it. He's like, man, I'm listening to what they talking about. What's this? Now you just are numb to all the evil, wicked things that's in it, and now you just love the song. Because now that the chant has now just started growing louder and louder and louder. You may not look at that as sorcery and wizardry, but that's exactly what it is. It's just another device to tap into your spirit. I think we was talking about music a couple of weeks ago in the chat. So it was like, yeah, I don't like rap music because rap music is this and that and the third, right? And then we start going back and forth. There's some positive rap music that's out there. There's brothers that's doing certain things, but I don't know about rap. If you look at it on the surface, all forms of music have some form of evil in it. Whether you say I don't like rap, but I like old school, I like R&B, and I like the old school, the Motown days. Well, some of them songs is wicked as hell. When you listen to the words and the message in them songs, you didn't realize it because you was numb to it. But now that thing kept going and everybody dancing at the party and everything else. And then as soon as you hear the tune, that's my jam. But that jam got a lot of wicked connotations in it. And sometimes you act out on those connotations, right? Because everybody like it. Like my auntie like it, my grandmother like it, this, that, and the third. So now when I'm growing up and I'm seeing everybody listen to the song, me and Mrs. Jones got a thing going, but she married to that Mr. Jones. So is it okay where, you know, this the music that's being said, that's old school, you know, classic oldies. But man, come on. So a lot of it has these devices and things in it to now cause you to now drift away from the righteous spirit of the Most High. Right, and it's repetitive tools, it's sounds, and all kind of things.
Yeah, that's the power of the media, right? The mediator. That's why Yahushua is supposed to be the mediator. That's download the law into our heart so that it can settle. So what the music does is repetitive, then it's downloaded into your subconscious mind, and then it sit there.
Right.
Then when the time comes, you're gonna pull it up and then make some act based on what's on your heart.
Right.
And that's the heart that the scripture's talking about is it become like a stronghold. Now that heart is filled up with a bunch of garbage that we've been listening to over time. So all, you know, that when the time comes for us to act, some of those wicked stuff will pop up and then the act will be played out.
Right.
Right. As a man thinketh in his mind, as in his heart, so is he. So
right.
All these stuff that has been downloaded over time, that's pretty much what's, you know, in the mind.
Right.
And that's why we got to listen to the scriptures in repetitively the same way we got to do a reverse.
Right.
Listen to the scriptures repetitive so it can settle in our mind.
So now,
all right.
Just like you said that Yahushua is the mediator, or he's the median, he's our conduit, right, between us and the Most High. These different types of persons who now follow these different types of spirits, they're called a medium, right? Because they're the go-between. Right? They're the ones that's now speaking on behalf or seeing these evil spirits and different people and then saying, this is what you should do. Right? They're giving you the knowledge. They're giving you the fortune, right? Like a fortune teller. The median is in between and you're going to them. Like how we go to Yahushua, he's our mediator. He's the one that has given us the word from the Most High of what we should do. So it's the same thing, just on the left-hand side, but it's made like it's a parallel, right? That's why when you put in that scripture in Deuteronomy, what is it, 30? Was it 19? Choose you this day life on the right-hand side, death on the left-hand side, right? There's some similarities there, but the actions and the rituals and the principles behind it ain't the same, right? On the surface, it looks the same, but it's not, right? And that's why the Lord now had to put it in there to make sure you refrain from dealing with anybody like this. And if you find somebody like this, You got to kill him, right? And it's not a murder, it's a righteous killing because the law already said that this should not be done. If you do this, you are going to be put to death. Everybody else is just now acting upon the Most High's judgment, right? One more, Leviticus chapter 20. Leviticus chapter 20. And 26. Leviticus 20 and 26. It says, and ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, or separated you from other people, that ye should be mine. So the Lord never was about integration. He was all about segregation, separating us because of the law that was given to us, set us above everybody. Verse 27, a man also or woman that have a familiar spirit, dealing with all these evil spirits, that's what it means with familiar spirit, or that is a wizard, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall be upon them, right? So this is what is being read about or spoken of in 1 Samuel 28. Saul went out there at a certain point in time and he did this. He was going out there finding anybody who was reputable, who was a wizard, a familiar spirit, enchanting, and they was putting them to death. And then after a while, those who was doing that practice, you know what had to do? They had to stop, right? They had to go in hiding. If they were doing it, it wasn't out in public. They didn't have a sign up tarot card reading, right? Or palm reading, or whatever the case may be. They didn't do that. They had to do that on the sneak. So this is what now we're about to embark on and reading this chapter here to see now what Saul is about to do. So now let's go back to 1 Samuel 20. Oh, Salah. Verse 6. Verse 6. 20 and 6. First, Leviticus chapter 20 and 6, it says, and the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits, right? So if you know this is what they do, and you are enticed, and you now go after them. I want to learn about that. Let me go start researching that. Let me go start checking this out. Not for the purpose of trying to go and, deal with it for the cutting it down and showing all the flaws so that you can go and expose to other people so they don't do it, but you just inquisitive. Right? Curiosity is settling in. And I want to go and find out, is there any benefit to this? Right? We battle with the brother Jason on this all the time at camp. He sees the benefit in doing these types of things. Right? It says, and the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits and after wizards to go a whoring after them. Spiritual fornication. Because in doing that, you have removed yourself, or you have removed the Most High as being your source or your guide. You want to go get it from them and Satan, right? That's why it says goes a whoring. You're like you're going and going, I'm going to go sleep with the person that's giving me this information. No, you're spiritually sleeping with them, fornicating. It says, I will even set my face against that soul and will cut him off from among his people, meaning he's going to have to die, right? And he's going to use, either he'll do it or he'll use Israel to do it. Stone them with stones that they die.
Because at this point, that soul of that person is gone. Because their willpower, their emotion, and their mind is pretty much gone. Sometimes they see that thing is wrong, but they can't stop it. Right. Because their soul is gone. Because they emotionally tied, their willpower, their mind, they cannot even control themselves. They keep going. That's why people get into stuff that they want to get out of. If they find themselves keep doing it, it's because their soul is pretty much tied up.
Gone.
Soul power. Heard talk about that. Soul power. Okay. You can add Leviticus 19:31 also to that list. Leviticus 19:31. And if I may, I just want to read this in the Zondervan on familiar spirit.
Okay.
This on page 170. It says, familiar spirit generally used to refer to the spirit of a dead person, which professed mediums claim they could summon for consultation. The word familiar has the sense of the Latin familiaris, belonging to one's family and hence ready to serve one as a servant. Such a spirit was thought to be able to reveal the future. and it references what we're reading in 1 Samuel 28, which you read in Deuteronomy, as well as Isaiah 8 and 9. And it says, Israelites were forbidden to consult familiar spirits. This was regarded as apostasy so serious that those who consulted them were put to death. He read that in Leviticus. Saul put away mediums early in his reign, but consulted the witch of Endor, who had a familiar spirit when he became apostate just before his death. And for like the pop culture stuff, like books, movies, music that we grew up with, that our kids grew up with, you'll see this take different forms. And when you see a lot of times that where it's presented as something that's cool or friendly, it'll be like a pet, like an animal, like a cat that can talk, or like an owl that can talk. Like you'll see this in like Disney movies, Sword in the Stone, or like TV shows that was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, right? Where it's like, oh, this is cute, this is funny, right? Ha ha ha. But it's like, no, this talking animal's actually presenting itself that way. If anyone that may come by, it's actually, like you said, this unclean spirit is helping them out, assisting them with whatever work that they're doing. That's on the left hand side. But you'll see just how they'll make it, like you said already, they'll make it into something that's like friendly, that's cute, that's interesting, that's like, oh, you know what, let me try this, let me dabble. And Harry Potter's a big one. Like all the Gen Zers, like Harry Potter's like their hero. When you go into those movies, those books, you see it all up in there.
Right. I mean, to really see it in action, like if you go Levi territory, it's blatant, it's out there. It's clear. It like in movies they put it subliminal. You're watching it, you don't even know what you're watching. You're just watching a movie. But to speak to somebody that's really into that stuff, it's just like a brick wall. You cannot even, you cannot even convince them of anything.
Wow, you.
Right? Because I had this guy I was talking to, and I said, man, he kept talking about these ancestors and things like that. I said, man, there's only one mediator with Christ. This guy could not even, fathom Christ. He said, Christ, he's just there. He's just one of those guys that was there. But it's the ancestors. To the point where the guy just stopped talking to me because he's so heavy into that medium stuff. That's pretty much, he has dreams and everything. He come and ask me, what do you think that dream means and things like that. So it's heavy in Levi territory, and that's one of the reasons why you see Levi in that condition. Because once they in it, they straight in it, and they'll tell you everything they in, and you cannot convince them. It's just like that's a guide to them.
And the interesting thing is, the Most High just give you over to it, right? He'll to prove you, he'll allow certain things to happen to see if you're going to give into it, right? It tells you in Deuteronomy 13, the 13th chapter, and the first verse. Deuteronomy chapter 13 and 1. It says, if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. So it's the same thing, right? Somebody who's dealing with witchcraft, necromancy, right? Soothsaying, and you go to them and they say, look, this is what's about to happen. And they go to them and it come to pass, right? Because that's the whole thing when we talk about prophets, we deal with other people like, so in your book, any prophecy there to happen, right? Now, let's just say somebody has some whatever book and they say, yeah, this guy is the one who gave us this information and this happened, right? It says, and the sign or the wonder come to pass whereof he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods. It's not verbatim in saying, let us go after other gods, but you're going after other gods by now going to that as a source to get the knowledge or to get the prophecy, right? It says, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Verse 3, thou shalt not hearken unto them, so like hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God proveth you to know whether ye love the Lord your God with all your heart or with all your soul. Meaning, the Most High is using those individuals for that other purpose to prove and see if you're going to go follow that. So now the Lord allows some things to happen. This guy said, oh, it's gonna the cup gonna turn gray. Okay, we'll let it turn gray. See what happens. See what he say, right? Because in order for him to get that cup to turn gray, he said it came from Horus. Horus is gonna allow that cup to turn gray. We should go and worship Horus. The next day come and he look at the gray. It was black, all black, but now it's starting to take gray, right? And let's just say man didn't have to come in and really do some smoke and mirrors. Maybe the Lord will just have it turn gray just to see what's going to happen, right? Whatever that thing is. But it's not so much that the false God is doing it. It's the Most High that's allowing these things to happen to prove an individual. That's because we know the Lord says that there is no other gods. There's no God that's doing anything. There's only one God. That's the Most High God. But he says he's going to use them to prove if you are a follower of him or not, right? So that's the key when you now have these other mediums and they're now coming and seducing people and telling them certain things. Yes, you're going to meet a guy. You're going to go into the coffee shop. Because now people come in there on a one-off and says, am I going to find love? They start flipping cards. And all these cards look evil as hell anyway. They start flipping cards and they're like, ooh, look at that one, right? That's the such and such of love. And that thing look crazy as I don't know what when we watching these movies, like, that's love? Get the heck out of here, right? And then it's just, yeah, it's telling me because the spirits is now talking. It's telling me that you're going to meet someone in about 3 months. You're going to meet someone in 3 months. It's not going to be what you normally assume it to be, but just open up your heart. And you're going to, and all of a sudden, here comes some guy in a coffee shop and you're sitting there and you start talking to you, and your heart is already open. And this is the guy. And then now you start conversating and you got certain similarities. You give him the number and you run back to the doggone tarot card reader. I met him. And now you start advising other people. Listen, you need to go talk to the tarot card reader because no, I only deal with Christ and the Most High. Most High God. I hear what you're saying, but I found what I was looking for like right away. Like he gave me or she gave me the answer and it happened. Has that happened for you? And the person was like, well, I've been looking for love for 5 years now. Hey, you should go and just try it. Just try it. That's what the Lord said. Anybody who's now teaching you to go follow after another God or a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, not of me, that person got to go. But Lord is swift to judgment. He ain't going to just wipe somebody out. He's going to allow it to fester and see what you're going to do. And you inquisitive, and now you done brought somebody else to go see the tarot card reader. The same way we bring other people to the school to read the Most High's law. It's the parallel, right? They're seducing, they're soliciting to get people to come into their world. We're trying to get people to come into this world on the right-hand side.
What's attractive about it is you get quick results.
Yeah.
That's what attractive. That's why people get attracted to these things. You get quick results right
yep.
there. But all in all, your soul is going down and down and down.
Right.
Like you have people, if they're going through some trial or tribulation, and they trying to find out why my life is upside down, why everything that I touch is not working, why is that? That's when those things come in, and then fathers, you see that this is what happened. This is what happened. Next week, next thing you know, you see you got a job or a business coming your way, and next thing you know, things start turning around. You sold.
Yep. That's just how, like what did it say? How Israel is. Like we need to see a sign. Like Yahushua, if you the one, let me see you do something. Do something. Right? Call fire down from heaven like Elijah did. Like, come on, do something. Right? That's what we want. And even if it happens, people going to come up with an excuse. Man, he did that with such and such. Come on now. You got to do something better than that. Right? It's never going to be enough because they don't believe in that source. They don't believe in that power. They're trusting in another power. Right? And the same token, when somebody come up to us and they talking about Allah or they're talking about the Metu Neter, right? They could show us all day. Like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but we trust in the Most High. This is where our source, this is where our power is, right? Even though that's falsehood, they just possessed like the woman in Acts 16. Can't come out of it right now. So now going back to 1 Samuel chapter 28 and verse 3, I'm going to move on. It says, now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together and they pitched in Gilboa, right? So now they're about to engage in warfare, right? It says, and when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid and he was greatly trembled, right? So now when he's seeing the amount of people that was with the Philistines, he got fear set in. And it could have been that the Lord just put that fear on him, right? Because the Lord will give you the spirit of might, right? If you are in tune with him and you're doing what's necessary, the Lord will now give you those spirits and those qualities that you may need at that time. Or it could just be that, hey, he's seen 10,000 and it was only 5,000. He's like, oh man, we can't win. I don't know what's going on. He already had an evil spirit on him. He had already been questioning himself and what was going on between him and David. And now he's seeing this happen. So he now needs to go talk to the Lord. Verse 6. And when Saul inquired of the Lord, meaning he went to the seers and the prophets and whoever else was there, and the Lord answered him not, meaning they didn't have an answer. The Most High wasn't giving him, no, you should go here or you're going to win this battle. He didn't say anything. Neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by the prophets, right? So when you read it in the law, the priests wore on their breastplate your Urim and the Thummim, which was lights and perfection. It was like stones that the Lord would use in order to communicate certain things, right? So his light was taken out. No Urim. No Urim was being given, and no knowledge was being shown to Saul at that time by anybody, right? So like the brother said, when you read it in Hebrew, is a Warium, lights. Was it Thorium for Thurim? Thorium, I think it is. Thorium, right? Lights and perfection, right? And then it goes into all different types of qualities that also go with it. But this is what they had on their breastplates, right? And then you'll see, and you know, again, the left-hand side, they take certain things because when you read what it does, right, it would now give you certain signs from the Lord that the priest would just have on his breastplate for certain things. So now, you know, wizards and witches and everything else, they would have like their crystal balls and different things where you can look. It used to be little toys for kids, right? They have the magic ball, right? And it had like things inside the ball. It was in liquid, and you shake it up, right? And then you say, hey, should we go to the party tonight or whatever? You shake it up and you wait for it to say yes or no or maybe or whatever. You say, oh. And then you act upon that, right? That's your lot. You say, oh, well, this thing said no. Or this thing said, yes, we should go there. Or I'm going to do this. This is the job for me, right? So these types of things, when you look at what was in the scriptures on a righteous side, they've taken and made it wicked and given it out as many devices to deceive and to pollute the minds of our people, right? Was it Jeremiah 11:19, I think it is, where Jeremiah says that they had devised devices against me, and I knew not, right? There's a lot of devices that's out there to pollute the people's minds that we don't realize that it's being contrived to do that. We just think it's just something harmless, something meaningless. But that thing, that little thing can plant a seed and go a long way. So verse 7, it says, Then Saul said unto his servants.
Well, just in case anyone who comes across this stuff on the left-hand side, they call it scrying. The word crying with an S in front. That's what they call their version, their left-hand version of it. You're looking to the crystal, trying to figure out the future.
Scrying?
Yeah. So you ever see that being mentioned, like in these TV shows, you know, dealing with the occult and stuff? That's where that comes in. I know we watch Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. You have a lot of that in here too.
Mm-hmm. Verse 7, Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Isn't Endor in one of these, was it in Lord of the Rings or something like that?
Star Wars.
It was in the Star Wars?
Yeah.
Right.
They had a TV show called that too. Right before the first Star Wars movie, timeline-wise, yeah, it's called Endor. I think it's called Andor. So it's not exactly the same, but it's like the names always sound similar.
Right.
Like the guy Darth Vader, his name is Anakin. It almost sounds like the Anakim, the giant.
Yeah.
That we fought against.
Mm-hmm. And that just goes to the storyline, and we always say that a lot of things that you may see in popular medium or industry pulls from the scriptures, right? They may change up, you know, some things to kind of just mask it, but they're pulling from the same storyline and just giving a different flavor of what it is to convey that message, right? Verse 8, it says, and Saul disguised himself and put on another raiment and went in, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me the familiar spirit, and bring him up, whom I shall name unto thee. Right? So again, showing that these things is real. Right? Saul now went in with 2 men masked in the middle of the night, right? To go and have this woman, this witch from Endor, go and conjure up a dead spirit. Right? We read up in verse 3 that Samuel was already dead and buried in Ramah. So now he's going, he ain't got no outlet. No one else is giving him an answer. So the best thing that he remembers and he knows is Samuel, because Samuel was the one that was dealing with him. Now, the same people that he was putting to death, now this shows you how much of a wicked spirit that he has on him. He's coming right back and seeking out someone who was already known as to be abominable to the Lord, right?
Seeking out different source.
Yep. Verse 9, and the woman said unto him, behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to curse me to die, right? So the woman now, this witch, is reminding who she thinks is just a regular individual, listen, why would you now put me in a position where I can get killed? Because if anybody find out about this, they're going to come seek me out and kill me. So she had now stopped doing this on a high level. And now here's a person that's coming in the middle of the night, disguised, and she still is reluctant to do it. Why are you putting me out there? Why are you trying to jam me up, right? This is what a lot of my fellow cohorts got killed for. Verse 10, and Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. How the heck can he swear on the Most High's name when the Most High said in the law in many different areas that this is an abomination? He's supposed to be put to death. So he's lying on the Lord, right? He's swearing and lying on the Lord that nothing is going to happen to this woman if she do this for him. So that shows you the spirit that he's in, right? That's why I said when it comes to lying, you definitely don't want to lie on the Most High. You don't want to lie on Yahushua. You don't want to lie on the truth, right? Because there could be very grave consequences that come with that, right? And you don't want to, and he probably don't even feel guilty yet at this point in doing it. He's just looking to get the answer because he's so much in disarray in the spirit. He got all things going on. He's not seeing clearly.
And he knew exactly what he was doing because he went in hide.
He disguised himself. Yeah, he disguised himself so that she wouldn't see that who he was, because he's the one that put the order out to execute the law, to say anybody out there, go find them and kill them, because she just said it. You know what Saul was doing? If she'd have looked, wait. No, hell no, I ain't doing that. You trying to trick me, right? So let's just go about it in the disguise first, and then we'll see what comes. Verse 11, then said the woman, whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, bring me up Samuel, right? So now when the woman is asked to bring up Samuel, it wasn't that, oh, well, Samuel was a righteous spirit. Let me not deal with him. I only deal with evil spirits. No, that's what she does, right? Now, the Lord could have prevented it from happening. But no, we just read in Deuteronomy 13 that the Lord will allow certain things to happen to prove you and to bring out his judgment. And we're going to see it come to pass in a few.
Right, because these things in the spiritual realm, everything is written down. Keep in mind, everything is written down. And the spirits, they have information that, we don't have here in the physical.
Yep. So reading on verse 12. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. So once the spirit of Samuel came up, she started putting 2 and 2 together, right? And depending on whatever happened when she seen Samuel, she realized that this is Saul. Why have you deceived me? Why did you trick me? Why did you lie to me, right? By having you come in here and do this. It's you. Because now she's going to probably think that he's about to kill her, but he just swore falsely that nothing is going to happen to her. Verse 13, and the king said unto her, be not afraid. Don't worry about it. Everything good. But for what sawest thou, And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods or judges ascending out of the earth, right? Because gods don't always just mean like angels. It could be just spirits or judges or rulers of certain things, depending on the context, right? So now when he kind of kind of put her fears to rest, what do you see? Let me know. Showing you that now this woman is the medium, because now Samuel is there, but Saul can't see Samuel, right? He's in the spirit form that only this witch can see and talk to. It says, and he said unto her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man cometh up, letting you know that he can't see him, but the woman can, right? And he is covered with a mantle, and Saul perceived that it was Samuel. And he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. So now, based on what he's hearing from the medium, the witch, he's like, yo, that got to be Samuel, because I remember how he used to roll. And he, gave him obeisance, right? Bowed down to him. Verse 15.
Just a link for verse 10, you said earlier, you actually referenced it. Leviticus 19 and 12. To go with 28 and 10. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 12. It reads, you shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God.
Perfect.
I am Yahweh.
Con. 12.
Yeah.
Read it again, just in case anybody didn't catch it.
Leviticus 19 and 13.
19.
12.
Yeah, con. Yeah. Read what it says again.
Leviticus 19 and 12. Ye shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shall thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord.
Right. Swear by the Lord's name falsely, neither profane his name. Right. Carries weight, carries a judgment.
So you shall not swear by his name falsely, but you shouldn't be swearing at all.
Correct.
Because you might want to read that and say, well, I'm swearing by the name of the Most High, but I'm not swearing falsely.
Right. So now when you look at swearing, because you take certain oaths, like when you do an oath, you swear to the Most High on certain things, right? And an oath is something that's really sacred, something that you don't want to deal with like on a light scale, right? So because Israel like how we do today, like over time, when you start dealing with the other nations and you start dealing with false gods, you start to minimize the Most High and his name and his power and everything else and equate it to everyone else. So then you just start using the Lord's name in vain, right? Well, I swear on my mama this, and I swear on the Most High God, I swear on Jesus Christ, that such and such, such and such. And sometimes you usually are probably just lying to get yourself out of a jam, right? People use it because now when you say certain names, is as if, okay, that's supposed to be bond. It's supposed to hold weight. So when I say that, you believe me off cuff. But because Israel do it so often, we use the Lord's name in vain, like it's light. And then sometimes we start lying on the Lord's name just to get out of something, right? Let alone just profaning his name. We just use it lightly. But there are certain cases like, on the normal level, you don't want to swear by the Lord's name. You don't want to swear by your mother's name. You don't want to swear by no one's name, right? To say, yeah, I swear I'll be there tomorrow, right? Or I swear I'm going to be here doing this on Thursday, or whatever the case may be. Everything is Lord's will. But now if you say, well, I'm going to go and for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to dedicate myself to the Lord, and you go and you swear to the Most High, Lord, I'm going to do such and such. Because like the Nazarene law, I see some camps, whether, I don't know where their mind and their spirit is in, some of them will do it. The law has where they shave your head after you come out of it and everything else. Now I see some boys like, hold on, the law said you're supposed to be bald. And then you'll see later on and say, yeah, I did a vow to the Lord. And at the end of my vow, I shave my head and then I grow back and so forth and so on. But it was to remove Israel from being so accustomed and at ease with just using the Lord's name for any old thing. Even in certain prayers and swears, sometimes Israel ain't in their right mind. It was for you to consider what it is that you're saying and what it is you're doing. Because once you break that oath, once you break that swear or whatever that vow that you're doing, that's a big judgment. The Lord requires all of that. You can't use the Lord's name just lightly. The Lord requires that. So here is to make sure that you don't use it to swear upon his name falsely, to go against his will. It says, oh, don't worry about it. Ain't nothing going to happen to you. Ain't nothing going to happen to you. You ain't got to keep the Sabbath. Most High cool with that. Where he say that at? What verse of scripture is that? You speak on the Most High's name. I think falsely here, brother, because I don't see a verse, right? And then you have people who will do that about certain things. That's why we always say, prove all things. Show me the scripture, the chapter and verse that says this. And most times you want to get 2 or more witnesses to corroborate it, right? Because you just give me one verse and it may not have the context of the substance. Give me another one and I can put them 2 together, at least 2 witnesses, then we can come to understand. But if it's just you something saying it, no, I can't. But
you know, when someone might say, I swear, you know, but the word God just means power and authority. That's not necessarily the Most High's name. Because you have atheists, people that don't believe in all kinds of gods. They say, I swear, they say they swear to God, but which God are they talking about? You don't know which God they worship. So then it's not necessarily they swearing on the Most High, because God is not his name, right? So, I mean, people out there say that. I mean, that doesn't really, my point is, that doesn't really mean that they swear to the Most High.
But now for those, remember, this is meant for those who knew the law, who understand who they are. Right. So now you may not even need to say the Most High's name. You could say, I swear by the Most High God. Right? I know when you say it, you know who you're talking about. I know what exactly. That's the point. Right. That's the point. Right. Now, to somebody who in the world, right, who just, you know, loose with their tongue and loose with the words that they're saying and don't know what they're talking about, right? Because in their minds, they may say the Most High name is Jehovah, Yahweh, right? And now when you say Jehovah and Yahweh, it's just not the name, because the name, you know, is one thing. It's about who it is, that spirit. What spirit is behind the name that you're talking about? Is Yahweh, is Jehovah the one that loves all nations? Because we can say, yeah, this is the bastardized version of Yahweh, right? J's, V's, all that. But now that person that you're talking about, is it Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Yep, it's the same one. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I just call him Jehovah. You call him what? Oh, okay. But it's the same one. But now what principles do you now follow behind that man? That's the power. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Does he have a chosen nation? Does he still want us to execute the law? Did he send his only son down for the nation to die for their sins? Is he sending him back to come and redeem? Is it that one? No, that's not my God. Oh, so you're talking about another God, another Jesus, another power. Okay, so when they praying, they're doing it to this false God that they're ignorantly thinking is something real and it's not. So yeah, for us, that's where you want to make sure that you stay in the law. Right?
Yeah, good comparison is like when Christ told us, anyone who blasphemes the name of Christ can be forgiven. Because they did this all the time. They'll know we're out there teaching in Christ. They say, "Oh, you guys got a devil," just like they did.
Your cult.
But then it says, "He that blasphemes the Holy Ghost should not be forgiven." It says, "The blasphemy of the Holy Ghost should be in the mouth." And that's where we read in Acts. We have examples of the one guy and his wife, where Peter came to him and was like, "Did you sell a field for a certain amount of money?" And the husband lied. He was like, "Oh, word, okay." You know, that's knocking at the door pretty much. He said the angels came to him and then he gave up the ghost right there. Then the wife came home. I think the wife came home later or something. They asked her the same question. Yeah, we sold for the same. Yeah, she agreed with the lie her husband said. He said, "Behold, the feet that came to the door for your husband are not here for you." She gave the ghost up. So, like you said, when you're in the know, you're held to a different standard. And to speak what you were saying earlier about this law, not swearing falsely, right? You follow this law, you do well. But what Christ talked about was how not just to do well, but to do better, so to improve. So not to say not to swear falsely on God's name is wrong. No, that's right. You do well if you do that, but you do better to not even swear at all when you take other things into account, like you were saying.
Okay. All right. So where we at? 1 Samuel 28 and we have 15 now. It says, and Samuel said to Saul, why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? So now Samuel is not talking directly to Saul. He's talking to the witch, to Saul. But just like how the Most High uses angels, or he uses Moses or Aaron when he's talking to the nation of Israel, and the Lord said to Israel, and then you hear the back and forth between certain individuals, but it's the person who's the mediator. It's the person who's now the go-between. It's the witch. And Samuel said to Saul, why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. So he's thinking it's the last ditch straw to come and say, you know what? Nobody is doing it. The Lord ain't talking to me through nobody else. Best person I know is Samuel. He's dead though, but I'm going to now go and have this witch from Endor bring him back up, showing you that if you got to go to those lengths, you should already know the Lord ain't dealing with you still, right? But now he's compounded his wickedness, right? It says, then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee and is become thine enemy? Same thing. Like, why are you even going to this length? You already know that the Most High ain't dealing with you. Why would you even go further down into the depths of sin and wickedness? Verse 17, and the Lord have done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord have rent the kingdom out of thine hand and given it to thy neighbor, even to David, right? So the Most High has executed what I had already told you was going to happen. This should have already been the writing on the wall. The Lord ain't dealing with you, and you see the spirit on David. He's given the kingdom to him. Leave it alone. But that's not what Saul was doing. Verse 18, but because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his wrath, his fierce wrath upon Amalek. When you read that story in 1 Samuel 15, when the Lord said to go and kill him, and he allowed the king to survive, Samuel was like, what is this going on here? And Saul lied. He kept them alive. That's not what the Lord's judgment was. All of them had to die. Then it says, therefore have the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, so it just doesn't stop there, right? Because of what you did before and what you've been doing now, the Lord don't deal with you. But now you done brought me back, right? Now let's see how far it's going to go. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. So now it's like, it just doesn't stop there. Tomorrow, y'all don't go out to war. You got to fight because they're coming. It's like you're going to just avoid it. It is what it is. But you and your son's going to die, and all Israel is going to fall into the hands of the Philistines. You're going to be joining me, right? You're going to be over here in the spirit world. So now imagine all the fear that he already had with the Philistines. He don't went to this depths to bring this witch to have Samuel come back, and Samuel tells him that he about to die tomorrow, right? What is it going? Well, how you think how he feels? Verse 20. Then Saul fell straightway all along the earth, right? As soon as he said that, he fell out. Fell out, right? There's no might, no spirit left in him after you hear that judgment. It says, and was so afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night, right? So now the Lord's judgment had now come full circle, where he now knew what his fate was going to be, right? Go to First Chronicles chapter 10.
I think it's terrifying enough to where you've done something or said something so wrong to where most of them not even answering you. Like, that's scary enough to then be desperate to then go to a witch, you know?
Yeah, but when you're in it, you're not thinking about that.
That's what I'm saying. Like put yourself in Saul's shoes. Like, I used to have this conversation with the Most High.
And it's gone.
I reach out to him, and it's like it's just going into like a void.
It's like
desperate.
Yeah, exactly. What they call it.
It's like ghost of me.
That's great. That's
yeah.
Scary, man.
And he got desperate, like very desperate.
Those Philistines look pretty strong. I don't know if I should go up against these kids.
I mean, to a certain degree, everybody faced that.
Yeah.
Like when you want something from the Most High, you want it right now. And the Most High said in Psalm 27:14, wait. I say wait. So now he said, be of good courage. Good courage means you're going through a suffering, but can you have the courage to let the time pass and wait on the Most High? So that's what he did. He wanted
Luke
this to happen right now again.
21:19, and your patience possessing your soul.
Because exactly. So if you not patient, you're gonna give your soul over to a medium.
Yep. You're gonna give your soul up to Satan, right? To do sin, to do wickedness.
And Satan will give it to you right there and there and then kill you.
Mm-hmm. So just to see what the fate is going to be, this is First Chronicles chapter 10 and verse 13, right? It says, so Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, which is against the Amalekites. And then it says, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him and turned the kingdom unto David, the son of Jesse, right? So now when it says it inquired not of the Lord, because there's times where you may go ask, put a prayer to the Lord, and he may not answer you right now. He might not answer you that day. He might not answer you for a week. But now, because he don't answer you or give you what you want at your time, then you go take matters into your own hands, right? And that's why it says, well, he didn't wait to come ask me. But Saul's spirit was already exposed. So it was just a manifestation of what was going to happen. And the Lord already had his judgment waiting for him, right? He already told him your kingdom was gone, right? Because of what you did. Now he compounded it. So we see here, as you read later on, the Lord put it in the Chronicles that he had to put him to death because what he did during the time of the Amalekites and what he did with this witch at Endor, right? As a testimony. So that should be a deterrent to anybody who's inquisitive, who wants to get more in-depth knowledge to see how, if I did or tried these practices, if I could use it to benefit me on the right-hand side. No, the Lord should just leave it alone so that you do not become possessed with the Spirit and you leave the Holy Spirit. So going back to 1 Samuel 28 and verse 21, and the woman came unto Saul and saw that he was sore troubled and said unto him, behold, thine handmaid have obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way, right? Because he was already fasting and hadn't eaten that day. And now when this fate comes upon him, he don't want to do nothing. Right? Usually sometimes you see this at like when people die, like at deaths, like they don't want to deal with anything. And you have people who will come, like mourners will come and they bring food and they try to urge you to eat to get strength in your body so that you can continue on. So now he had been fasting and now he's about to die. Like he got one more day and and the witch heard it, right? It's not like she didn't hear it, but it's like, look, you gotta get up. You still got to get yourself together. And maybe the Most High will have mercy on you. But no, that's not the case because the Lord already gave the judgment through Samuel, who was already a spirit that the Lord was dealing when he was alive. And the Lord allowed him to come back and give him that judgment. Verse 23. But he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants, the two men that came with him, together with the woman, compelled him. And he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. Right. So he listened after a while, and they prepared him a meal. Right. It still is kind of interesting, especially a person who's mainly just grew up in the city, to always have to go to the supermarket to get your meal. When you read stories like this, she had a calf in the house and went and took it, killed it, dressed it, prepared it, right? Where your meal is just cooked right then and there. Like you see a chicken running around, it's like, what are we going to eat tonight? We're going to eat chicken. All right, go catch it, right? Go catch the chicken, wring the neck, take it off, clean it, do all that, and then you eating it, right? That's something that, people that's down in the Caribbean or on the outskirts where they're not away from the city. Yeah, they kind of live off the land. Right, they raise cattle and raise certain things on their own for the purpose of either trade or actually eating for sustenance. All right, where's the place right down the block here? Right, they got a place right down here. All right.
land.
Mhm.
I was going to the supermarket like that. You got farmers markets. You got that in Jersey too, right? They don't call it the Garden State. You know?
And you guys done that?
Hmm?
And you guys done that? Catch a chicken, kill it?
Nah.
You?
No, the kids.
Yeah.
Who you grew up
Hey.
with? I thought you been in America all your life.
That's
my
how we
bad.
cook. Do it in the hot water, pot of hot water.
I know, I was trying to figure out where he was at, but the Dutch country.
Yeah, I've seen it like when I go, like how they got the slaughterhouse down the block. Well, I've seen the one that's in when I used to live up in by North. It was one over there, and I always see, they take it out the thing and they do the same thing, put it in the hot water and take all the skin off and clean and everything else. And then they dress it, dress it for you so you can take it home. And then my mother cook it. But I was so, like I said, I used to tell the story every now and again. I'm so foreign to it. I didn't eat that chicken that night.
You saw it running around.
I saw it running around. I didn't eat that chicken that night.
Well, you didn't eat it because of that?
Yeah. I was you imagine you a kid in the city, all of.
Oh, you was a kid.
Yeah. I was like, but I'm like a teenager. I'm like maybe 12, 13, 14, somewhere around there. And all I know is going to ShopRite, Pathmark, Acme, and seeing the chicken in the package. That's all I knew. Whatever meat, and to go down and go to the store and you see somebody grab the chicken and kill it and dress it. You're like, what the heck? Nah, I can't do it. Right. But now it's a bit different.
To even add to that, I remember it was a couple of years ago, it was on NPR, WHYY, which is NPR around here in Philly. And they had a news show. They were talking to these middle schoolers in some school in Philadelphia, somewhere in West Philly. And they took them to like one of those lands where they grow stuff. They were showing the kids like how you grow certain fruits and vegetables and stuff. You have a couple of them in Philly, but you hear the kids are talking to them, and you hear one of the kids, he's just like, ew, that's where tomatoes come from. So he's like, I don't eat nothing that comes out of the dirt. And the teacher's just like, whoa, what? Because it just seems like you said, being in the city, going to the supermarket, and it's like, that's where the vegetables are. They come from the produce, but it's like, where did those come from? They came from the dirt. And the way he said it, it just showed the disconnect.
Yeah.
Like you said, being a city mouse versus a country mouse.
Yeah. There was some schools that I've seen that's in certain areas, predominantly Esau, that they have the adolescents, the younger kids. They take them out. Classroom is not in the school. It's out in like the fields, going out to the pastures and different areas and teaching them about trees and vegetables so they can understand the actual how everything operates. Right. It's just not something that's just in books, especially because if you're in the city and you don't get out the city much, it's people who will say, listen, I never left the 4 square blocks of where I grew up, where I live. School's right across the street. They got the bodega and all that right there. We go get the groceries and milk and all the stuff that we need right from the bodega. This is what I know, right? They don't see or know anything outside of a certain area in the environment.
I went to the supermarket, Moana Way, by the office, and I pick up some sugar cane. And when I went to the counter, and the cashier was like, "What is this?" I said, "Sugar cane." So what is that? I said, "That's where sugar comes from." She's like, "Ew."
The way it looked, right? You used to being in a package, white sugar just in the package or brown sugar, right? You don't know where it actually.
That's really where sugar cane comes from, huh?
Not the cane, but the sugar. How you get certain sugar. That's how you extract it. All right, so let's finish up because I'm gonna go through the next chapter just to stay on par. So this is 1 Samuel chapter 28, and we have verse 25. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they arose up and went away that night. Right. So now I was supposed to do 28, 29. I'm gonna just go through 29. It's not that deep. It's not that long. We can read through this to stay in par. Verse 29, chapter 29, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed on in the reward with Achish. So now as they starting to alarm the battle arrangement to go fight against Israel, David is amongst them, which is in the reward. He's in the back. He's coming up to be the protection, right? So now they're going to start looking and seeing that they're fighting against the Israelites,
but they got an Israelites that's within their ranks, right? Not to say that's not common, because David, with his mighty men and his army, he had heathens that was amongst them, right? Just like how Esau has them amongst in his armies. A lot of people do that when they now give their alliance or their allegiance to you, right? And that's what Achish thought David was doing with him. Verse 3, then said the princes of the Philistines, what do these Hebrews hear? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, is not this David, the son of the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which have been with me these days or these years? And I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me unto this day. So like, yo, what are these Hebrews doing amongst us? Are you talking about David? You don't remember? David been with me for about a good 16, 17 months now. He ain't got no issues with us. Y'all don't remember? Y'all ain't never heard nothing about him, right? So now they kind of, it will kind of put you at arms and thinking that he's going to probably turn on us. So that's why the Inquisition is like, yo, how we fighting along these dudes over here? It's about 600-700 of them, right? I don't know if I feel comfortable.
You see how they put the Mosai here. Another example of the Mosai put a difference between Egyptians, Philistines being their cousins, and Israel, to where, today they'll play along. Like, you want your daughter to, I'll braid her hair, my brother. You want some luggage, my brother. It's like, they'll play this way, but then when you leave, like, those whatever else. So there's that division between Hebrews and Hamites. But they're still there, even though they try to play it up so they can get your money or try to get you to be at peace with them.
Right. And I mean, when you check the spirit of the Bible, most people are seduced by man's purpose and not the Most High's purpose. Because to that point, everybody wants to try to have this, all nations live in harmony, right? Everybody lives in harmony with one another. But you don't even see that in the scriptures. You don't read about that in the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Apocrypha. You don't see that the Lord has said that these things was going to be where everybody's just going to be equal together, living in perfect harmony. It's not there. So like when you see something like little like this, back then, and then you move forward, like even it's like, hey, aren't you that Egyptian? Like, calling you, I was like, ain't you had such and such? I don't want to say it on the thing, but ain't you that guy? Right? Separating, seeing that people don't always equate each other to the same regard. Right? Sometimes they'll diminish you or make you feel lesser than, right? And not make you feel equal to. But quiet.
Only the human species do that stuff. In the animal kingdom,
everybody got their order. Right.
Like we want to, bring everything together. Where the Most High create every nation and give them their characteristics and how they should dwell. But we want to mingle everything all together.
You see the blackbirds fly with the blackbird,
the
white bird fly with the white bird. The eagle fly with the eagle.
The lions, they're with the lions. They don't have it. Oh, they go to cheetah right there. All right, cool. You can come chill out with us. And they just dwelling together, eating together. No, it don't happen that way. Right? Everything has its proper order.
We know this species is out of order.
Yep.
And once in a while, a bird might land on top of a hippopotamus right in the water, and they may fly off them, but otherwise, no, they don't.
Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about how nations trade with each other. Like how we do trade. Like, okay, you got this and your land, got this on my land. And I think in biology, they got a name for it. It's like a symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the sharks and the remoras, those little fish that pick off stuff off.
I was going to say, or it's almost symbolic of what Yahweh Shai said to get the crumbs. Yeah. Just getting the crumbs, because sometimes when you see it in the water where like a shark, like a great white or whatever, is going and go and kill some other different thing in the ocean. But now when he's biting, all the little particles and everything is going to be floating in the water. That's when they're going to go eat. They just following along to wait and see what's going to be the next big meal. And then afterwards, we're going to go eat. Right. So that's just, like you said, it's all synonymous to the spirit of how even the Lord has it in the scriptures with us. Right? They get the crumbs. You ain't going to sit at the table with me, but you get some crumbs. We'll give you some crumbs. Same thing they did to us. We're going to do to them. Right? So now reading again, reading on verse 4. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. Right? They was upset with the king. And the princes of the Philistines said unto him, make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place, which thou hast appointed him. And let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? Should it not be with the heads of these men? Right? So they was, I mean, it was a bit wise. They're like, yo, we don't want to go out there and fight with these guys in the midst of the battle, right? He turned, right? He started feeling, for his own people, and then start turning upon us and killing us, and we didn't prepare for it. Send him back to Ziklag, let him stay there, right? Or else he now turn on you and then go and align with those of his own people. Why would you ain't thinking about this, Akish? That's kind of what they saying.
That's strategy.
Right. These men on the surface, they wise in what they're saying. Right.
He had 2 chances to kill Saul. He didn't kill him, so he wasn't going to kill Saul in battle. So they was right.
Yeah, they didn't even know that.
They didn't know that, but
they didn't know that. But they suspected
that.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't know it, but I'm just saying when it already happened. He didn't even kill Saul. So you think he's going to kill him now?
But now you may not know as much as they know. They do, because David was a reputable person. And they had wars amongst Israel, this, that, and the third. So word travels, right? So there's certain things that these Philistines knew about what was going on, because the 5th verse said, is not this David of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands and David his 10,000s? Right? So now they bringing it up because, in warfare, people are going to start, promoting what they done. Like, yo, we beat y'all. Yeah, we did to y'all. So now they're hearing the rumors and everything about what was going on. So they're like, yo, you ain't realize what they were saying about this guy?
And not only the doubt, they were talking about them killing the Philistines.
Exactly.
So,
it's so funny with this thing right here, because it shows you how timeless certain things are when it comes to rap. And today they have this thing called high value, right? Being a high value man, being a killer, if you will, where it's like, this is like what really establishes a man as far as power, right? Authority. How many he can take out. Even Saul is like, okay, this guy might be a threat. Even when it came to him humbly. But imagine this thing now on David's side, where it's like this thing's a thorn in his side. Because, taking it back to earlier in Samuel, where you guys talking about him being deceptive, war is deception. You gotta use deception in warfare. He pretended to be like a madman, right? With a spit dribble, because he heard them saying the same thing back then. He said, I'm behind enemy lines. They might try to capture me and torture me.
Exactly.
He pretended to be, crazy. So now this coming up again, it's like, for any of us, it might be a good thing. Like, they talking about I killed 10,000s, but
nah, yo, man, don't talk about that.
I got a name.
Leave it alone.
Mm-hmm. I got bodies, they love me. And it's like, at this point, it's like that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
You want them to remember.
Yeah, it's like you got some celebrity that go in the store, but they trying to be disguised. I'm like, yo, ain't that Chris Brown? Yo, don't do that, because I don't want that attention right now. Right? I don't know where I'm at. I'm just coming here to get something to drink, and we going out. I don't want to be crowded here, and then somebody coming like, oh, we have to rob him, or we about to do something to him because you behind enemy ground, or you're in unsafe ground, so you don't know what you're gonna do. So you want to keep all that on a hush. But yeah, to your point, I think you was talking about as far as for men prove their value. They have to, prove their value, or women are supposed to keep their value. Right? When women are born, they keep their value. Men are born, they got to prove their value, prove their worth by the deeds and things that they acquire, that they do to those that say, he got 1,000, man. God's good. He got 10,000. he's greater than that guy based on what he's done. Right. All right, verse 6, it says, then Achish called David and said unto him, surely as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight, as much as he knows, right? Because David was not forthcoming on what he really was doing, right? It says, for I have not found evil in thee since the day of thy coming unto me unto this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not, right? Because he killed everybody. He didn't get to come back and tell him that he was doing certain things. Verse 7, wherefore now return and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of the Philistines. He didn't want to have no turmoil. There's been, insurrection within the army. You mad because the king let these guys here. So now they're not really focused on them. They focus on him, and it's not good. So he said, you know what? Okay, we remove. Go back. You ain't did nothing wrong. There's nothing on you. We good. it's these guys here, man. The princes, the chief ones. They not really liking with you right now, and so that turmoil, just go back. Well, yeah, not rocking with you. I'll get with you when we get back. Exactly. Now check out David, verse 8. And David said to Achish, but what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not fight against the enemies of my lord the king? So David playing ignorant, like, what's wrong? What'd I do? Yeah, I thought I was gonna go out and fight with y'all, man. This messed up. Now, the funny thing about it is, knowing David, he would have did exactly what these Philistines was afraid of, right? As soon as they engage in the fight, David would start wilding out on them, right? But he's now playing the role and says, okay, cool. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they would think that of me. I haven't done nothing wrong to y'all, man. Verse 9. And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, he shall not go up with us to battle. Wherefore, now rise up early in the morning with thy master's servants that are come with thee, and as soon as ye be up early in the morning and have light, depart. Right? So he's like, listen, you always been 100 with me. Nothing wrong with you. But, these guys, you can't go to war with us. So when the sunrise comes up, everybody that's with you, y'all just go back and just chill back out in the countryside and go on the roads what you was doing before. But you can't be in this war with us. So verse 11, it says, so David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning to return into the land of the Philistines, which is really the land of Judah. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel to go fight against Israel. All right. So when we go back, or we come back in 3 weeks, we'll read and see what actually now happens in this war that Samuel already gave Saul some insight into what was going to happen to him in the next day. And then we see what also happens with David. All right. So that concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Really was supposed to be 28 and 29. I guess 27 was a review, but that's all good. So next week, let's see if I got the list. Next week, we're back in the New Testament. You know what it is offhand? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just pulling up. I don't remember. There's a lot of posts up in the group chat. That's what I think. Okay, it's a separate one. I got it. So next week, we're going to be in Ephesians chapter 5 and 6. Ephesians chapter 5 and 6 for next Sabbath service. And then also keep in mind, Monday night, 8th new moon service. All right, Monday night, sundown, 8th new moon service. So please tune in for that as well. All right. So Lord's will, everyone was able to get to understanding the precepts. Any questions, any doubts, concerns, or anything that you want to bring up or revisit, make sure you write them down in your notes, in your phone, whatever you may have, your laptop, and then bring it to the Tuesday night and then the Friday night class, and we can go into it a little bit more in depth. All right. So Lord's will, everybody has a remaining Tawab Sabbath day, right? Whether you're going to be reading, checking out some documentaries, doing some good work, some alms, whatever it may be. Make sure we stay in the spirit and do things with the Most High and Yahweh Shai in mind. And we'll also keep everyone in prayers. For those of us who need prayers, we'll pray for the whole school, as well as even other camps, because it's just not about us. We're not the only. We're not going to be the 1/3 here in HYK. HOI is not going to be just the 1/3. WFI, IUIC, we're all bodies and we're all members of the body. So pray that all of us, elevates in wisdom, elevates in knowledge, has the endurance to make it to the end, and is capable going out and try to raise up those who are still a part of the 2/3 who need to come into this glorious light. All right. So with that, I say shalom, which is peace To all the brothers and sisters, stay tuned for the closing prayers and a Shah Shabbat, which is Happy Sabbath. Stay tuned.
Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Tawada Amun, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha'Ella. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I model upon you all Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. All right, closing prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shammai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Ma'ika Allah, Waha Hayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemal Ayam, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyak, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabium Kakama, Rabium Da'ai, Rabium Bayana, Rabium Sabalonwa, Rabium Amawan, Rabium Aqua, Rabium Ahabium, Rabium Hagana, Rochanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha Akim, Wa Akiwa, Wa Yasha'ala, Thum Yad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahushai, Thawada, Amun. English translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, pleases unto us now, right now, send Michael and the righteous angels or powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel, and send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. For corner's prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabat Yasaparium, Shema, Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, all right, in the translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, bless us and Israel in the house of books or schools or camps. And Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. With that, we'll say again, Shah Shabbat, Happy Sabbath. Make sure everyone tunes in again for the new moon service on Monday night. Peace.